There is a place that is spoken about only in whispers, a dark area that spawns the beginnings of urban legends, a place where anything can happen and usually does. During the light of day, it hides just outside of view, but when the sun goes down, spirits, creatures of the night, roam free, and things do go bump in the night. It is in every state and every country, and there is no escaping it, no matter how safe you feel behind your locked doors and latched windows. So we invite you to turn down the lights and turn up your radio while we join Dave Schrader and Tim Dennis, your hosts, on a journey into the darkness on the edge of town.
Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me over at the Supernatural News Desk, Mr. Tim Dennis. Hello, Tim.
Hello.
Are you ready to begin a new week into the weird?
I believe I am, yes. I think I'm ready.
Good. Well, that's a start. Hey, I've got a question for you here. Well, not a question. I've got a movie review, if you don't mind. Can we start it off with that a little bit different?
Sure.
Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I just went and saw that movie, screened it earlier in the week, and I got to tell you, I'm not impressed. I really love Jurassic World. I thought that was a phenomenal restart to the series.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of felt like this was the same movie, just being told over again, which I guess all of the Jurassic Park movies are essentially the same movie, but this just felt, there were just too many ties to its predecessor, and then, the gentle nods to some of the other movies. I get them, I understand them, but I also just want, and I understand they're trying to bring the threat closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely done in this movie. But yet, like a few of the predecessors, they haven't, you remember it was like, I think it was the third Jurassic Park movie when the movie ends with the pterodactyls flying away off the island.
Yeah.
They never addressed what happened to those. And, did we have to go to war with the pterodactyls? Did we win? Did we shoot them down? What happened to them? And then the last movie, when all hell broke loose and, spoiler alert, bad things happened. Dinosaurs were on the run. People were being eaten, Tim. The pterodactyls and pterosaurs got out again.
Yeah.
This one just seems like, it's been a few years. There's that volcano seems to be coming alive on Jurassic Park. We should, we need to discuss the interesting implications of life. Should we save the dinosaurs? Should we go get them, our creations, and bring them somewhere safe for sanctuary? That's kind of the moral clause to this whole movie. And it just doesn't feel true throughout it. It just, I don't know. It's fun, it's fast paced, and I would look at Bryce Dallas Howard just standing in a flowery field for 2 hours because I'm fascinated by her.
Uh-huh.
But and of course Chris Pratt, I would watch him do the same thing. But I didn't feel they even utilized either one of them in any meaningful way in this movie. I just felt like both of them seemed to be, without diminishing their acting ability, but it just felt like they were rehashing and just kind of playing the gig without, there was no passion behind it to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
So, out of 5 stars, I would give this a solid 3. Special effects are beautiful. The story is decent. Although telegraphed throughout, kind of how things are going to go and where we're going with it. But they do introduce a few new wrinkles to the story. And that might be interesting. So we'll have to see where they go with the next movie. But I don't know. To me, this was the transitory movie that feels like we could have done away with this and just waited another 2 years to come out with the third movie in the franchise, and it would have probably been better.
Interesting.
But we'll have to see. I could be wrong. Maybe it'll come out and the third movie will be horrible. It'll be Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 3. But in this case, there's something missing for me. But, that's it. But it's still fun, and the kids will enjoy it, Although there were kids there that were like 10 and 12 years old that were actively acting afraid. Actively acting, Tim, that's a lot of redundancy.
I get what you're saying by actively acting. Yeah.
They were very afraid going into this movie, and I'm like, why would the parents bring a kid to a movie like this if they're so afraid? And secondly, how good of a storyteller are you that you can take CGI animals on a screen and scare 10 and 11-year-olds with it?
I guess pretty good.
Yeah. So they're doing something right.
Yeah.
But that's the start. I would say that is the beginning of this new series. Again, I think it has a possibility of being something interesting for the next movie. I just feel this is the stepping stone to get us to what I really want to see.
Zombie dinosaurs, Dave? Is that what you want to see?
Duh. I'm waiting for it. And then, of course, we put together Skynet to battle said dinosaurs. Right. Yeah. Right. And the zombie virus, and then AI sparks to life. Yeah. And then every imagination of ours has come to fruition. Tim.
Yeah. And then it's Terminator versus zombie dinosaurs over a box of Twinkies. And then yes. And then that's
I would win in that case. Just so we're clear.
No. Terminator would beat the zombie dinosaurs because eventually they'd go extinct. Yeah.
But I would win because there's Twinkies involved.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I would do battle. Right. I would fight that carnage to the end, Tim.
Oh, yeah. Well, why not?
Probably not.
We all would. I mean,
I'd last 5 minutes, and you and I know it.
I'd need a nap.
You need a nap?
I'd pick up the gun and just go, that's enough. That's enough for me.
I'm tap me out. I'm done.
I need a nap. Yeah.
All right. We've got some supernatural news from around the world. Looks like quite a few stories to get into, so let's jump into it. Where will we begin today's journey?
We're going to the cinema, Dave. We never left, really. I mean, that's...
Oh, really?
Yes, we're going
delightful.
To the cinema, we are. The Mapperley Cinema, to be exact. What lies behind the secret door at a former Mapperley Cinema? Well, it's not Jurassic Park, Dave. It's paranormal investigators, actually. They stumbled across a mysterious door hidden behind a false wall in one of the upstairs room of the Majestic Cinema in Woodthorpe Road, Dave. It is a rusty metal door, Dave. A rusty metal door. Don't touch it or you'll get tetanus unless you've had your shots. Which has been nailed shut with what investigators claim are fingernail marks across it, Dave. Fingernail marks. Yeah. Questions have been raised about what lurks behind the door. The red door, if you know what I mean. I don't know what I mean. As they believe... I don't either. As they believe it has been concealed for more than 30 years, UK ghost hunts have acquired the old decaying building with the hope of transforming it into a cinema again. Because why shouldn't it be transformed into a cinema? There aren't enough of them. There are also offering... paranormal investigation evenings to find out more about the building's past. It was during one of those evenings on June 10th that the door was found. Paranormal investigator 30-year-old Chris Charles from Netherfield found the door and believes it leads to an attic of the second tower. Well, there goes the mystery behind that. He told the Post, I'd been all over this building, but had not been in the second attic, which is in one of the two towers. I'd been in the first, but had just had this urge to go find the second. Well, haven't we all? We had our first break with the group. I was searching for it and found a cavity in one of the walls that I could not explain. It was a fake wall. Something had been purposefully covered up, so we took a hammer to it, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you? And saw rusted metal. It was a rusted metal door that was sealed. Why has someone gone out of their way to seal the door off?
Well, I don't know.
Maybe because they didn't want you in there. The group came to look, and some felt uneasy. Guests said they felt sick and did not want us to open it. Some guests put their ear against it and heard scratching on the other side. Dun, dun, dun. The group do not plan to open the door, he went on to say, but are planning to carry it out in the coming weeks with other paranormal investigators present. Some team members have got a horrible feeling from the door, he added. It's a metal door. Just open the damn thing. The former cinema first opened on June 10th, 1929, and remained open as a cinema until September of 1957. After closing its doors as a cinema, the building became a furniture store for many years, until that closed down in 2012, after which the building is thought to have been abandoned. It's been said that the location has seen a number of paranormal phenomena over the years, as people have claimed to have heard footsteps, seen shadows, and even witnessed items being moved around without explanation. Mr. Charles and his colleagues Paul Buckland and Steve Wesson said that a white figure has been seen on the cinema balcony and a mist has appeared on occasions. He said, I believe there has only been one recorded death on site, but spirits do move about. If this was a favorite place for them, they will come back to it. It was a cinema in the 1950s, and if they enjoyed it in life, they will enjoy it in death. Of course, unless you're playing B movies, then they'll probably just go away. I added that last part because
no, really, it sounded so right in
organic.
There with that article.
Did it sound
very organic. Felt like they wrote that part. So why would you do it? Open the door.
Yeah,
you're investigators.
That's what
investigate. Damn it.
That's what Paul McCartney said in that one song. Open the door and let them in.
Yeah, not in this case. You don't want to let something in, but at least you can go in and check it out.
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I'd open up that rusted door. Why not?
Sure. Where are we off to next?
Surabaya City.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're looking for a missing child, and they're going to use a paranormal service to do it. I mean, why not? I mean, the city officials are busy.
Right.
Yeah, Surabaya is where we're going. The Surabaya city government is doing its best to search. Oh my! This is a name you came up for me. I can't even say the name. It's Galang Ardiansaya, sure, who disappeared on Eid el-Fitr Eve. Yeah, around the mosque near his home on Thursday, June 14th. One of them is using a paranormal service to try and find the child. Until now, there's been no progress. The child has not been around, said the head of Disaster Management and Environmental Agency of Surabaya City on Sunday, June 17th. According to EDI, it continues to work as much as possible and in various ways to find the child. In addition, he continued, his side also expanded the search through communication with all heads of... You just did this to me to torture me, didn't you? You can admit it. Go ahead.
Of course. Yeah. That's part of my job here if you haven't figured that out
yet. With all heads of Bacchus Bangladesh? Yes. The Public Protection Agency of regencies and cities across East Java. Even we are also searching through the paranormal service with the hopes of finding the presence of the child, he went on to say, related to the possibility of the child visiting another family. Edi said it was already looking for the closest relatives of the child. He does not because all the families have been visited, he went on to say. Regarding the indications of child trafficking, Edi said he does not have the capacity to explain because it is all the authority of the police. As for child theft, it is still under exploration of resort police headquarters, he went on to say. Meanwhile, he continued, his side still received information about the missing child in Warungu Post on Jalan Bendul Marisi Utaru.
I am 8th. Kind of a bastard, aren't I?
You are. Wanakalo subdistrict of Surabaya. The command post consisted of BPB Linmas, Wanakalo Subdistrict, Wanakalo Sector Police, and Regional Apparatus Organization of Surabaya City Government. He added the post functions as command and control for incoming information at the scene. We keep trying to do the search for the child, he said, as reported by Antara. So there you go.
All right. Good stuff.
Sure.
Good stuff.
It was wonderful stuff.
If you say so. Where are we off to next?
Brown County, Wisconsin, where their stuff is just as hard to pronounce, if not even more tougher. The haunted history of a chilling visit to Brown County's Hazelwood House is what we're talking about here. Cold spots and eerie presences have been felt at Brown County's historic Hazelwood House. This article from Action 2 News in Brown County, teamed up with psychic medium Regina Becker to find out if there's any truth of stories of specters roaming around Hazelwood. Becker runs Regina's 7 Pillars into Pier. I have found it extremely fun, she went on to quote. Plus, I feel like I'm helping people because you fear what you don't understand, said Becker. If you can make sense of it, then you don't fear it anymore. Becker said she's been communicating with spirits since she was 4 years old after having a near-death experience. She's only recently become a full-time psychic medium after retiring as a nurse and moving to the area from New York. Now Becker spends her time helping people connect with the other side. Our journey begins with the historic Hazelwood. Christine Dunbar is the executive director of Brown County's Historical Society. She tells us, when I started, I had a person come over and say, "Is it okay if I come over and sit on the steps because I'm having feelings about the Hazelwood?" That's what she said. Dunbar recalls, she said she saw different time periods here and different families that may have lived here. Dunbar says she heard stories of people feeling spirits in the Hazelwood house for some time now. Psychic medium Regina Becker thinks some of what people feel is the first family to live in the house. Morgan L. Martin, his wife Elizabeth, and their 6 children. Becker told the Action 2 news team, "I feel a stern man." Where she felt him is beyond me. Morgan L. Martin built the Hazelwood house in 1837 for his new wife and their baby. He built it for a purpose, said Becker. He picked this property for a purpose. Dunbar recalls he knew the style he wanted. He wanted a Greek revival. Don't we all, though, Dave? Have you ever wanted a Greek revival?
No, not really.
No? Oh, okay. All the wood was shipped from New York through the Erie Canal, sent here and built. Becker could picture the scene. I could almost see him going through with a tape measure and going, "Well, you're an inch off here," she said. Sorry.
Least compelling investigation in history.
Well, have you ever gone through the house with a tape measure telling yourself you're an inch off here? No?
Maybe.
Okay. Dunbar said Morgan Martin held many special roles within society. He was a judge, he was a lawyer, and he was the first mayor of Green Bay, said Dunbar. His busy schedule left wife Elizabeth alone to raise the kids. I do feel that the lady of the house was alone a lot, said Becker. Boy, she just has a whole backstory for him. Dunbar confirmed it. He wasn't here, and her, Elizabeth's letters show exactly what you said, that I'm here alone, and she wasn't expecting that. As Becker and Dunbar continued through the house, Regina started to pick up on things. It was never warm in here since the ceilings are so high, said Becker. Dunbar said she knows that to be true because Elizabeth wrote about it in her diary that is now housed at the Neville Public Museum in Green Bay. She wrote that the house was drafty and that they all had to sleep in the same room because the wood was wet and the fireplace didn't work, said Dunbar. As they went up the stairs, Becker started to sense something else. My hands went from warm to ice cold, said Becker. I do feel an illness with a lot of pressure on the chest. I'm not sure she survived. Becker was referring to one of Martin's children. Dunbar said 2 of the kids died at young ages. Dunbar said Annie died at the age of 6 from rheumatic fever. And Melancton Martin, that's a different name, died before the age of 2. Dunbar said they don't know where he died or what happened, but it likely happened in the house. Becker believes it happened at the top of the stairs. I believe that one of the other children had picked him up and was going to carry him downstairs and dropped him. Well, that's what happened to me as a kid, yeah. I saw him hit head first at the top of the stairs, said Becker. I didn't see him go down the steps, but I feel his brain became swollen and he died. Ouch. Dunbar says, we didn't know about that, but people who go upstairs often feel cold as they hit the top of the steps. That is the only place people say anything like, I feel like it's cold right here. Dunbar said the oldest son, Stephen Leonard Martin, fought in the Civil War and was never the same when he got back. I keep hearing that nobody understood him, that maybe he would come out with something or do something odd and people at that time didn't understand, said Becker. He died in the insane asylum, said Dunbar. As Becker and Dunbar made their way through more bedrooms upstairs, Becker may have connected with another Martin family member. Someone keeps repeating, you have to read for the children. You have to read for the children, said Becker. Dunbar believes that was the youngest daughter, Debbie Martin, who is a librarian. She started a reading program for children, and that sounds like something she would say, said Dunbar. With help of her sister, Sarah Martin, Debbie wrote about the history of Brown County and helped start the Neville Museum. Debbie, helped save historic buildings that are now at Heritage Hill, said Dunbar. Dunbar said Sarah was the quiet one of the family. Becker said she tried to communicate with her, but only picked up on her image. She has her hair up, kind of like curled hair, and pulled up on the top of her head, said Becker. The dress is not real flowy. It's fitted, and on through the arms, greenish cream color. I am hearing Sarah didn't mind taking care of her kids, said Becker. We do know that she took over managing the household as her parents got older, said Dunbar. As they made one final swoop around the house, Becker kept getting a nagging feeling about the head of the household, Morgan L. Martin. I feel he wished he had more heirs that produced heirs. Like I said, I don't see a huge family thing from their original set of children, said Becker. Dunbar said the surviving women never married, but one of their sons, Morgan L. Martin Jr., did. He had 4 children. But his children never had any children, so that was the end of the line, said Dunbar. After spending 2 hours in the historic Hazelwood, Becker said she had an overall feeling that the house was very peaceful. When activity happened, she said the key is not to be afraid, but it just might be Morgan Martin keeping an eye on things. I do feel that when he comes to wander around, you might feel a breeze or something like that. He's checking the place out to make sure you're keeping it up, said Becker. While talking to local businesses about haunted places in the area, the owner of the Lorelei Inn in Alois told us strange things have been happening at her restaurant and bar. She said pots have been coming off the kitchen walls and TV in the bar turns on by itself. Action 2 News and Regina Becker toured the inn. The chilling part 2 of their haunted history report aired on June 14th on Action 2 News at 10. You want to hear something interesting here, Dave? Are you ready for this?
I am.
My Uncle Robert is actually a judge in Alois. He lives in Alois and in Green Bay. So there you go. Shout out to my Uncle Robert.
Very nice. I think we have the follow-up to that story as well as she continues telling us crazy things.
We do?
I think. Isn't that the next story you've got?
Let's see. Oh, yes, I do. The haunted history. It's right here.
See, I want to know. We got to follow through. We can't just give people a portion of the story. We got to give them the whole damn taste.
Okay, so it says the owner of the Lorelei Inn in Alois, again, has had several brushes with what she believes to be the paranormal. No one has quit, but I've had them run up the stairs freaked, Lynn Stahl tells Action 2 News. Action 2 News and full-time psychic medium Regina Becker of Regina's 7 Pillars in De Pere went inside to see if the Lorelei Inn should have a chapter in Northeast Wisconsin's haunted history. Lynn Stahl has no doubt that the Lorelei Inn is haunted. All of a sudden, the cigarette smoke comes out of nowhere, and up the stairs they are, Lynn says. She says unexplained occurrences happen weekly at the inn. Footsteps upstairs. You think someone is here and nobody is, she went on to say. Things tossed on the floor. Sounded like wind went through the bar and everything on the floor. TV turning on by itself. One time it turned on and 2 chairs were flipped around. I cleaned the bar. 2 chairs were facing the TV as if they were watching TV. Lynn said these things happen so often, even non-believers are coming around. It just fell straight down, and there was nobody in the place but the cook, Lynn says. He didn't believe it before, and that's the first time he ever said, yeah, something is going on here, Stahl says. Psychic medium Regina Becker is a Lorelei Inn regular. Even now you can feel a lot of energy, Becker says. We asked Becker to walk through the inn with us, and we started in the kitchen, Action 2 News says. Those containers, 2 of them fell off. And no one was in here. They kind of flew off, Stahl says. A couple of pots fell off the hooks. Regina Becker says energies can move things around. She says this energy isn't negative. I get a lot of your mom, Lynn Stahl went on to tell Becker. She spent a lot of time in here cooking, but also cleaning. Lynn's mom passed away late last year. Becker says, I keep having a vision of her not with a sponge, but a dish rag, cleaning. Everything had to be spotless. In the dining room, the cuckoo clock chimes randomly. It should have rung 4 times, but it rang 12. Lynn says her mother's cardinals keep moving around the room on their own. Cardinals seem to be a favorite, Becker says. That, it doesn't surprise me. Your mother moved that one to let you know that she is fine and she's here. Going into the busy bar, in the bar, which dates back to 1926, Regina senses something and someone new, someone from a different era. A gentleman is saying the bar area was a really neat stopover for the guys going home from work, Becker says. Lynn adds that there are pictures back to 1929 of the trolley going through here and going down past Schroeder's. They would have their martinis and cigarettes, and they would sit at the bar and go back to work. We find Lynn's father, Leonard, keeping an eye on things in the bar. Chair is like this, nothing here, and he is leaning on the wall, Becker says. Next stop is the basement. Leonard died in 2002, but you can still smell cigarettes. The basement is where Leonard would sneak a smoke behind his wife's back. Lynn says the place is non-smoking. Lynn Stahl says these signs of her parents are very comforting to her. He always believed he would come back and be there for us, and he is. He is. He is always here, she says. Some people will not sit at this table as they go to the haunted corner, Lynn says of her guests. When Regina Becker visits the Lorelei Inn, she likes to sit in this haunted corner. She invites skeptics to come see the inn for themselves. I say, come on in and give it a shot. I love non-believers and naysayers. Come on in and buy me a meal and I'll show you, Regina says. Regina Becker also took Action 2 News through
buy me a meal. You got to love her,
that's right.
her chutzpah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Buy me a meal.
Come on in. Buy me a meal. We'll see how it goes.
I'm starving. Regina Becker also took Action 2 News through the supposedly haunted Hazelwood house in Green Bay, and we just covered that story. So there you go.
Okay, Tim, where are we off to next?
Well, Dave, we're headed off to New York, where a Highland Park mystery sound... No, it's not anybody's gas in their sleep. Returns in the dark of night to haunt their sleep. This is truly a mystery sound. This mystery sound in the Highland Park neighborhood has resurfaced, but despite some late-night acoustic sleuthing, that is the name of my new album, by the way, Late Night Acoustic Sleuthing, the source remains elusive. 3 weeks ago, the Democrat and Chronicle first called attention to the droning sound that annoyed Highland Park neighbors off and on for a year. Some say it's kept them from sleeping. Others have resorted to music or white noise to block it out. Residents have hunted in vain for the sound's point of origin. The DNC enlisted Ming Lun Lee, there we go, an assistant professor in the audio and music engineering program at the University of Rochester, to analyze the sound and help track its source. It was Lee who raced to the Highland Park neighborhood twice about 10 days ago, once at 11 p.m. and once at 3 a.m. after a resident reported hearing the drone. But Lee wasn't able to detect the sound when he arrived in the neighborhood, microphone and recorder in hand. I didn't get a chance to listen to that hum, Lee said later. I really hope I can hear that hum in person soon. The Democrat and Chronicle, I just have this image of this guy racing over twice in the middle of the night with a microphone and recorder in hand and not getting what he wanted. But Lee wasn't able to detect that sound with that microphone and recorder in hand. I didn't get a chance to hear that hum. I hope to hear that hum in person soon, he was going on to say. The Democrat and Chronicle mapped the location of nearly 24 people who have said they've heard the droning sound, which some liken to a gas-powered leaf blower and others to the hum of a portable diesel generator. Most of the self-reported hearers live in the middle of the Highland Park neighborhood, though several live farther afield. There is no way to be certain all of them are hearing the same sound. Some say they only detected it once or twice. Others say they hear it all the time. Many of them have posted about the sound on the neighborhood Facebook page. No one had reported hearing the sound for about a month until a man emailed Lee after he read the DNC's original story. It has been affecting my sleep, and a friend of mine showed me the article when I was complaining about it, he wrote. The man who told the reporter he didn't want his name publicized explained to Lee that he picks up the sound frequently, but only in what used to be his bedroom. He now sleeps elsewhere in his home. Lee has analyzed 3 separate recordings of the sound he made in the city neighborhood. He found the same tone with a frequency of 315 to 320 hertz in all 3 recordings. The man told Lee that the sound he heard seemed the same as the one in the recordings. The tone is somewhat higher in pitch than the hum sound that is known worldwide and heard by at least a few people in the Rochester region. Lee has also analyzed more than a dozen recordings as suspected sources of the sound, some of them reported by residents in the wake of the first DNC story. They include 2 small power plants, several heating and air conditioning plants, a pump station, and even a malfunctioning street lamp. To date, none of them have been found to emit the telltale 315 to 320 hertz tone, though Lee wants to analyze more recordings from several potential sources. So there you go. Mystery tone, Dave, but they can't find a physical source.
What do you think is going on? I mean, we're hearing a lot of these reports, Tim, and you're an auditory guy. Mm-hmm. Do you think that could it be that it's something coming from underground? The vibration is creating this tone, and then when it stops, there's no way to hear it or confirm it?
Anything's possible. I mean, there's so many different sources that it could come from that you can't quite nail down. And that time of night, everything kind of settles down and everything's so quiet that just the slightest thing that vibrates at that frequency could be heard for quite a while, quite a ways and quite a distance, and anybody could pick it up. And we're so sensitive to things that late at night, especially 3 a.m., that tone could travel for quite a ways. So it could be anything. And just the thought of somebody getting up and running at that time of night to try and capture that is kind of like trying to capture a needle in a haystack. That's why I kind of was giggling during that story. It just seems like kind of futile, but it is what it is, I guess.
All right, where are we off to next, sir?
Well, this story, hold on to yourself, folks. A goat steals a woman's fertility. You heard that right.
What?
Yeah, a goat steals a woman's fertility, according to this story. She had been in a childless marriage for 15 years, Dave, and the only celebration she knew was when she inherited a goat. When she was, it says she knew was when her inherited goat gave birth.
I think you just melted my brain.
Yeah, I know.
Start that again.
She had been in a childless marriage for 15 years, and the only celebration she knew was when her inherited goat gave birth. Whew. The goat, which she was given by her maternal grandmother, always gave birth to twins, and little did she know that her fertility was transferred to the goat. Dinah Mahoney revealed that she had never known happiness in her marriage, and she failed to have children with her husband. She sought for help from different doctors, traditional healers, and prophets, but she remained childless. I had accepted my life's fate and had discussed the issue with my husband, where we had agreed to concentrate on our businesses. I found joy in the flock of goats I had and never suspected that my barrenness was linked to these goats, which I had inherited from my grandmother. This sounds like a Karnak bit. May your fertility be passed down to goats. When my grandmother passed away, she had indicated which goats I should be given, and the family followed her instructions. The goat was a real blessing, as it always gave birth to twins, and after a few years I had about 16 goats, she said. Mahoney then revealed that she was in shock of what transpired in her life after consulting a certain Bulawayo prophet, who then asked to go with them to their rural home. When we went to this prophet, she said my problem was not a big one, but for me to have children, I should make a sacrifice and allow them to kill all my goats.
Yikes.
Yeah.
That seems a bit, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit overboard?
A little extreme, Dave. A little extreme. It came out that my grandmother had bewitched me to not to have children, but the inherited goat to have lots of kids at my expense. It turned out it was true, because after all the goats had been killed and burnt, a few months later I had my first pregnancy, said the Terry Mahoney.
Good grief.
Yeah. She revealed that she was expecting her firstborn child in a few weeks. Mahoney's husband, Asper, also confirmed the matter. I had accepted that my wife had fertility problems, but a miracle happened after we traveled to our rural home in Masvingo to have all the goats killed and burnt. According to the Disciples of Jesus Christ International Ministries, Bishop Pasila, many people said to be barren were not just being affected by evil spirits. There you go.
Not at all, huh?
No, this from Bulawayo 24 News. So there you go.
Bulawayo?
Bulawayo, Dave. I don't know if you...
Bulawayo 24 News.
I check this daily, Bulawayo 24 News. I don't know if you know this, but very, very good, excellent news source. I think also our government checks it as well. Reputable news source. So there you go.
All right. And where is our next story taking us?
Well, a UFO was caught live on camera during a newscast in Buffalo, New York. Right there on Skywatch 7. An unidentified flying object, or UFO, raced across the sky over Buffalo, New York, and was caught on camera during the evening weathercast. Meteorologist Andy Parker, I just feel like he should be introduced like that, was showing the night sky and Skywatch 7 late in the evening, or at around 11:20 p.m. on Thursday, June 14th, when an object entered and exited the camera view. The object travels from west to east and makes what appears to be a hook turn to the north and gains altitude before exiting near the top of the camera frame. Andy Parker noticed the appearance of the object and offered up the idea it might have been a shooting star while asking the rest of the crew if anyone else had seen the object. The object moves too fast to be a plane, originates too far away to be a bug, and has a broken trail of light.
I've seen it, and have you seen the footage? It seems to be launching upwards, though, not like it's flying down like a falling star.
Yeah. I think at that point, Andy Parker pooped his pants. It's a good thing he wore brown trousers. Just
I guess.
Yeah. Yep. Poor Andy Parker. This is an interesting story.
Do tell.
Mexico's grand...
I knew we'd get to one eventually.
Yes. Mexico's Grand Warlock has cast a World Cup spell to help his team.
Really?
Yeah. Did you hear about when Mexico beat Germany this past week, that the whole country caused a mini earthquake?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, by jumping up and down when they won. It actually triggered a mini earthquake. It's true.
That's impossible.
No,
like, how many? Was it like 1 on the Richter scale?
Yeah, it was very tiny. It was like a 0.1 or 0.2 or something like that. But from jumping up and down, the entire country of Mexico caused a mini earthquake after beating Germany. It was pretty cool.
All right.
Yeah.
If you say so. So what's the story? The witch doctor cast a spell?
Yep. So with the help of 2 priestesses and a rain stick shaped like... It says with a rain stick shaped like an ancient Mesoamerican god, or with a rain stick... let me try it again. With a rain stick shaped like an ancient Mesoamerican god, Mexico's Grand Warlock cast a spell Wednesday to help the nation at the World Cup. Antonio Vasquez, better known as El Brujo Mayor, a soothsayer famed for his annual predictions on politics and the news, invoked the plumed serpent god Quetzalcoatl, worshipped by the Aztecs and other pre-Columbian peoples, to get the Mexican national team to at least the quarterfinals in Russia. Give me all your force and power to break through the heavens door. Let Mexico reach the 5th match, Quetzalcoatl. Let it be so, he said, his long white beard standing out against his green Mexico jersey, because you got to wear the jersey, Dave. You got to represent. That's all I'm saying. Mexico made their debut Sunday against reigning champions Germany in Group F, hoping to make it past the World Cup quarterfinals for the first time, which they did. El Tri have never beaten Germany at the tournament, but Vasquez brimmed with optimism. We will at the very least have a 0-0 draw or a 1-0 win for Mexico, he said. Vasquez also ventured a prediction on the winner, Brazil, Spain, or Portugal. A Latin team will be champion, he said. However, El Brujo is not exactly known for his infallibility. In 2016, he predicted Donald Trump will lose the U.S. Republican primary election, for example. You got that one wrong. He also has been known to change his predictions. In January, he predicted Germany would defeat Spain to win this year's World Cup.
So he's not as powerful and good as he had hoped.
No, but he did get this one right. He got Mexico past Germany, so, you know.
Oh, one out of 20 ain't bad, I guess. So, all right, where are we off to next?
Quetzalcoatl's on a roll. Well, we go to Montana, where we got a little result on that werewolf over there in Montana. The canine creature shot in Montana a month ago that captured the curiosity of the nation is actually a gray wolf, Dave. Not a werewolf, but a gray wolf. DNA from...
But how do we know that it's not a human that's transformed into a gray wolf?
Well, we're depending on the Fish and Wildlife Service.
The man trying to tell us, the man from the Fish and Wildlife program, Tim. He's just trying to confuse our little addled brains with their facts as they know them, Tim.
Yeah.
When the fact is, it's a werewolf. Just get over yourselves. We know it's a werewolf.
It's science, Dave. DNA from the animal, which was shot legally by a rancher near Denton on May 16th, was tested at the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Forensic Laboratory in Ashland, Oregon. The lab compared the animal's DNA with thousands of other DNA samples from wolves, coyote, and dogs. The conclusion was clear, Dave. Clear! This animal is a gray wolf from the northern Rocky Mountains. Confusion about the animal might be due to the condition of the animal in the photos, which seems to show short legs and big ears. That's just because it had weird parents. No, I'm kidding. Inspection of the animal at the Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Wildlife Health Lab in Bozeman revealed a relatively normal-looking dark brown wolf. Physical variations aren't unusual for animals, said Mary Curtis, geneticist for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Within species, there can be variability. That's not surprising at all, Curtis said. The wolf was a non-lactating female, which means she didn't have a litter of pups. However, any unique physical features she has might also appear in her siblings or parents and may continue to be passed along by others in her family. The wolf measured 45 inches from the tip of her nose to the rump and weighed 84.5 pounds. It's estimated that the wolf was between 2 and 3 years old. Wolves are fairly common in Montana, according to the 2017 Montana Gray Wolf Program annual report. Populations estimates suggest that there are approximately 900 wolves in Montana. This marks the 13th consecutive year that Montana has far exceeded wolf recovery goals. Property owners in Montana have broad legal authority to shoot wolves if they feel they might be a threat to their livestock, as was the case with this wolf near Denton.
All right. How many more stories have we got for him, sir?
Let's see here. We have 4 more stories.
All right, let us begin our journey into the final 4 supernatural news stories before we launch into Parashare for the week. Where are we off to next?
You ever hit that hogweed, Dave?
Pardon me?
Well, I mean, like walk through it.
No, because if I am correct, Tim, my fear of the outdoors is well placed with hogweed. In my belief that the end of the world as we know it is coming and that the out of doors is trying to kill me, hogweed, the beautiful weed that it is, and it is quite beautiful and fetching, wants to murder you.
It does, actually.
And it's popping up all over the United States. Dude, this is terrifying to me. This is you won't run into it in my house, so I'm staying indoors.
Right. This is another reason to stay inside this summer. Giant hogweed is a plant that causes blindness and third-degree burns, and it's been discovered in Virginia. So if you're in Virginia, you're screwed. Good luck to you. Giant hogweed sounds like a mythical plant that the student of Hogwarts would study, but it's real and it's dangerous. The plant grows in the wild, and touching it can cause third-degree burns and even blindness. Giant hogweed was recently spotted in Virginia for the first time and may also grow in other states. Warnings have been issued in previous years after discoveries in Michigan, New York, and elsewhere in the Northeast, Midwest, and Pacific Northwest. The latest confirmed sighting of giant hogweed came in Clark County, Virginia. It was identified by researchers at the Massey Herbarium. There's an herbarium, Dave?
Okay.
We can grow massive strains at the Massey Herbarium at Virginia Tech, who say that there are about 30 plants in the area of giant hogweed. Giant hogweed is part of the carrot family. That's why you should never eat carrots. And for a toxic plant, it is surprisingly pretty. It can grow up to 14 feet tall, so it's bigger than you, with thick leaves stretching 2 to 5 feet across and large clusters of white flowers gracing the top of the plant in an umbrella pattern. Umbrella Ella Ella A. The spray of white flowers looks similar to Queen Anne's lace, but the experts at Massey Herbarium note that the giant hogweed is much larger with chunkier leaves. Oh, they're not chunky, Dave. They're just big boned. We should point that out.
It's a pretty looking plant, right? I mean, it's very. You look at that and it's like, oh, that's something a kid would go grab a handful to bring to their mom.
Right, but they're going to end up.
And it causes third-degree burns.
Right, and blindness.
Blindness.
Yeah. The Virginia Tech Group posted photos of the plant on Facebook, urging anyone who comes across giant hogweed to report the plant to who, I don't know, and be careful not to touch it. The dangerous plant also grows in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Maryland, Oregon, Washington, Michigan, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Its sap contains toxic chemicals known as photosynthesizing furanocomerins. Easy for me to say. When these chemicals come into contact with human skin, it can cause a reaction that makes skin extremely sensitive to light. The reaction also causes dark, painful blisters, which can leave scars. Touching giant hogweed, the name of my new album, can also lead to long-term sunlight sensitivity and blindness if sap gets into a person's eye. Ouch. When the plant spread across New York in the past, the New York State Department of Health recommended that anyone who came in contact with the plant wash it off with cold water immediately and get out of the sun. A toxic reaction can begin as soon as 15 minutes after contact, and you need to call your healthcare provider in case of a severe reaction. The New York State Department of Health also recommends applying sunscreen to the affected areas. Since this can prevent further reactions if you're stuck outside, compresses soaked in an aluminum acetate mixture available at pharmacies can provide relief for skin irritations. If hogweed sap gets into the eyes, rinse them with water immediately, put on sunglasses, and contact your healthcare provider. These pesky plants spread when birds and waterways carry seeds to new locations. Seeds can grow for 10 years once they're dropped off. It's important to know how to recognize giant hogweed if you're in a state where it might grow and what to do if you find it. New York State officials have advised, do not mow, cut, or weed whack the plant. Why did I say weed whack? Like it was a big thing.
Because you're making sure to know that. Yeah, you don't want to weed whack it because you'll send that little sap and everything flying and just, blah, dude, and it's all over. Did you see all those states it's in?
Yeah. As it will send up new growth and will put you at risk to being exposed to sap. The same kind of thing that would happen with poison ivy or sumac. Seek advice from professional plant control specialists about management options. If you must touch giant hogweed, wear disposable rubber gloves, a long-sleeve shirt and pants. If you get sap on your clothes, carefully remove the clothing to avoid skin and eye contact and wash separately from other clothing with warm water and detergent. So there you go. Giant hogweed.
I think what would be good, personally, is if you find hogweed, go in, lock all of your doors and windows, arm yourself because the plant life is trying to kill you if it suddenly shows up in your yard. Right. And call the authorities or blowtorch.
Yeah, I'd say giant can of gas and a blowtorch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, where are we off to next?
A UFO is above a prime minister's residence and has caused a security panic, Dave. Evidently, they're coming for us now. They're taking our leaders, and we say, take them, please. Spotting a UFO may be a source of wonder and curiosity for most of us, but for those individuals tasked with upholding security, spotting anomalous objects whizzing around in the sky, not whizzing in the sky because that would cause rain, can be incredibly stressful. UFOs have been known to penetrate restricted airspace or stalk military vehicles, leading to all sorts of alarms and tense situations. While the skeptic in me, this is the article writer saying this, tends to think that these sightings is a result of adversarial nations spying on sensitive locations, some might claim that these events demonstrate unknown beings' interest in our defensive capabilities. Whatever the explanation for these sightings is, security forces in India recently responded to an unidentified aerial object seen hovering above Prime Minister Narendra Modi's residence in New Delhi. On the evening of June 7th, security forces spotted a round object directly above the residence, causing a mild panic and sending personnel scrambling to locate and identify the orb. According to the Hindustan Times, the Prime Minister's own security forces searched the area with the assistance of the Indian Air Force, Central Industrial Security Forces, and Delhi International Airport, but nothing was found. Delhi Police Chief Spokesperson Dipendra Pathak confirmed that some type of object was indeed seen above the PM's residence, but refused to give any more information. The Delhi police was also roped in, which ensured a temporary additional deployment on the outer periphery of the PM's residence, while other security agencies performed the drill to hunt the suspected threat down. The sighting was reported, but nothing threatening was found. More details cannot be shared, keeping security reasons in mind. While many Indian Twitter users have taken to mocking this breach of security, breaches of airspace are no laughing matter, especially given that Modi was recently the subject of a foiled assassination plot. In all likelihood, the UFO was likely a drone, could have been related to the assassination attempt, as the recent violence in Gaza demonstrates. However, even small drones can be fitted with explosive or incendiary devices powerful enough to cause personal injury. And it's being asked what can be done to curb that growing threat. There you go.
All right. 2 down, 2 to go. Where are we off to next?
You know what? I'm going to save that one story for last. Let's go with the Ghost brothers who leapt to their death as at one of UK's most haunted castles caught on camera, Dave. Oh, it's asking me a survey question. Hold on just one second here. I'm going to answer the survey question. Am I married? Do I have kids? I am not married, and I'm having some kids. I don't know who with. Do you either own an SUV or purchase? No, I don't. Okay, here we go to the story. A group of friends are convinced that they have captured a ghostly video during a late-night trip to one of the UK's most haunted castles. The pals say it represents white figures, including 2 horses and a rider, at Barry Pomeroy Castle in Totnes, Devon. The legend has it that 2 of the Pomeroy brothers, I almost said Pomeroy boys because it sounds better, part of the Seymour family, which owned the castle in 1547, took their own lives as they were chased by enemies rather than fall into their hands. The young brothers, dressed in full armor, are thought to have rode their horses up to the top of the castle ramparts and together leapt to their deaths. The Seymours had a significant influence on the politics of Tudor England, and Jane Seymour was the 3rd wife of Henry VIII and the mother of his son, who later became King Edward VI. The castle is reported to be one of the most haunted buildings in the UK, and the friends say they never expected to find any ghosts or paranormal things as they walked around the front of the castle. 19-year-old Chloe, along with her partner Charlie and friends Tyler, Maya, Cody, and Sam, visited the castle in the early hours of Saturday morning after being intrigued by the general scare factor. And the 19-year-old was left startled to find ghostly images appear on a picture she had taken. Chloe said, "We went in the early hours of this morning. The image was taken just before 1 a.m. I've never been there before. We weren't intending to actually go there, but Tyler told us it was meant to be haunted, so we thought we would travel there. Tyler is the only one who had been there before, so we followed him down. Lots of people think it's horses chasing someone, which I 100% believe too. Charlie never believed in ghosts before, and I've always been skeptical about it. I didn't believe it 100% until I saw it for myself. This photo is enough to make me believe." The group walked towards the castle and believed there was a noise which sounded like an animal, but thought they had perhaps triggered a sensor alarm. The castle near Totnes was one of the last of its kind to be built in England. Chloe continued, "Never in a million years did I think I'd get a photo like this one. I took the image just in front of the cafe shack thing that they have there. It's actually a beautiful castle, but just freaky at night. Before the castle was sold to the Seymour family, it came under siege. Many visitors claim that they have heard screams and noises in the area of the castle known as Pomeroy's Leap." Chloe said to the others wishing to find paranormal activity at the castle, "Be in a group and definitely avoid going alone, as people have said that they've come out with scratches or bruises leaving the castle. If you go, I wouldn't always expect to see something. Someone that goes up to expect to see something may end up seeing something small like a bird move and think it's a spirit. I am shocked at the amount of response I've had to it. My picture, some have said it's the most realistic image they've seen. I completely understand those who still don't believe in it, as I wouldn't if I just saw the photo on Facebook." Helen Lonsborough, site manager of Barry Pomeroy Castle, said, "Barry Pomeroy Castle is a scheduled ancient monument in the care of English Heritage and is open daily from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's very official of her. "We would ask that people do not attempt to visit the castle outside of these hours when the site is closed." That's very official of her.
You've been told.
You've been warned.
Abide by it, son.
Abide. And finally, Dave, the creepy AI that can predict the future. A machine that anticipates your movements several minutes in advance could pave the way for next-level Big Brother surveillance.
So this is your next foray into the end of the world will be AI.
It will
and the rise of Skynet.
Did I tell you, just a quick note, Dave, as you're doing the Terminator music in the background, that there is a wrestler who will be on the Chris Jericho Rock and Wrestling Rager cruise by the name of Brian Cage, who actually does the Terminator clap as he wrestles. It's kind of cool. I'm not going to lie.
The Terminator clap?
Yeah, it goes like this. As he wrestles, people do this in the background. I kid you not.
Wow.
It's pretty cool. I'm not going to lie.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so an intelligent machine capable of anticipating your next move minutes in advance sounds like the stuff of nightmares, but now it's a reality, Dave. It's a reality!
God, you're very unnerved by the whole thing.
I am. Researchers have taught an AI to recognize patterns in people's actions, allowing it to accurately predict the next move in a sequence minutes in advance. The software, of course, was built by a team at the University of Bonn in Germany. The Germans did it, Dave. And was taught to anticipate actions by watching hours of cooking videos. Why?
What?
Yep, you know why? So they could cut your freaking hands off, Dave.
Oh, that seems a bit on the dark side, Tim.
Just saying. Dr. Jürgen Gall believes that the intelligent software will eventually be able to prophesize your actions hours before they happen. Hours before they happen, Dave.
Oh, that'd be good to know. So before I go to Vegas, I could ask him, is it even worth betting today?
You know what it'll say? It'll say it in a German accent. It'll say, no, because your plane is going to crash, David.
Well, then I won't get on the plane, but that's still good news either way.
But if
I'm informed. See, it's AI coming to our aid, truthfully, Tim. It's AI helping us to help ourselves.
No, because then...
Thank you, AI.
Because then when you don't get on the plane, it'll crash your automated car into a wall and kill you that way. See?
True.
Uh-huh.
True. You've always got to bring me back down to earth, man.
Yep.
Very uncool.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to make you aware. Mm-hmm. If the team manages to fine-tune the algorithm to be able to anticipate actions that far in advance, it's possible to imagine a slew of real-world application from home automation gadgets to Big Brother-esque surveillance. You don't want Big Brother-esque surveillance. You just don't. You just don't.
I might. I got a lot of people hunting me down. A lot of darkness in my past.
You do.
I need protection.
Really? Mm-hmm. To teach the AI to accurately predict actions before they take place, Dr. Jürgen Gall and his team focused on cooking videos. Using pre-recorded videos of people preparing a meal, the researchers were able to teach the machine to recognize each action before performed on screen, including cutting tomatoes. They want to cut your hands off. Adding salt and flipping a pancake. In total, some 40 videos were used to teach the AI. Those 40 people are screwed. Each of these recordings was around 6 minutes and contained some 20 different actions. They keep trying to bring the video up on my screen. I keep closing it because I don't want to screw those people, Dave. I don't want them to be recognized by the AI on my system. No! No!
They're coming for us, man. There's no avoiding them now. And they're bringing hogweed, Tim.
They are bringing hogweed. They're probably going to put
sweet hogweed.
They're going to put hogweed in our salads, and that's how they're going to get us. They're going to put third-degree burns in our throats and kill us that way. Just saying. Then we tested how successful the learning process was, explained Dr. Jürgen Gall. For this, we confronted the software with videos that it had not seen before, like porn. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. So they could practice angry sex. I have no idea. Like before, the machine was told that I'm just going way too far with the scenario. Like before, the machine was told what was happening in the video for the first 20 or 30% of the clip. The algorithm was then asked to predict the next action before it took place on screen. The machine flagged up its observation before the action, drawing on its knowledge of the recipe and its understanding of how similar sequences have played out before. The AI was able to correctly anticipate actions in the near future with surprising accuracy. Dr. Gall said accuracy was over 40% for short forecast periods, but then dropped the more the algorithm had to look into the future. For activities which were more than 3 minutes in the future, the algorithm was only able to accurately predict the outcome in 15% of cases. Researchers only considered the prediction correct if both the activity and its timing were correct. Gall and his colleagues want the study, which will be presented at the Conference of Computer Vision and Pattern Recognition in Salt Lake City on June 19th, to be understood as a first step into the new field of activity prediction. According to researchers, the algorithm performed noticeably worse when it was forced to recognize the actions in the first part of the video instead of being told. AI systems rely on artificial neural networks, or ANNs, which try to simulate the way the brain works in order to learn. ANNs could be trained to recognize patterns in information, including speech, text data, or visual images, and are the basis for a large number of developments in AI over recent years. Conventional AI uses input to teach an algorithm about a particular subject by feeding it massive amounts of information. Practical applications include Google's language translation services, Facebook's facial recognition software, and Snapchat's image-altering live filters. The process of inputting this data can be extremely time-consuming and is limited to one type of knowledge. The new breed of ANNs, called adversarial neural networks, pits the wits, say that 10 times fast, of two AI bots against each other, which allows them to learn from each other. This approach is designed to speed up the process of learning, as well as redefining the output created by AI systems. In the future, Dr. Gall wants the algorithm to be able to forecast actions much further in advance. We want to be able to predict the timing and duration of activities, minutes or even hours before they happen, he claims. The researchers anticipate the algorithm will have initial applications in smart home appliances, where it could dramatically improve automation, and also so that machines in your home can kill you. For example, AI-powered kitchen appliances could pass over ingredients as soon as you need them, or preheat the oven in anticipation of the next step in the recipe it has identified, or turn on the gas in your oven so you can stick your head in it.
What? Again, you go so dark.
However, it is possible to imagine the AI being used in security systems to create advanced surveillance akin to the fictional Big Brother in George Orwell's 1984. That's in the story, Dave, and I didn't make that up. The University of Bonn study was developed as part of a research group dedicated to the prediction of human behavior and financially supported by the German Research Foundation, otherwise known as the New Wave of Nazis. There you go.
Well, Tim, so we've talked about the zombie apocalypse, now the plant apocalypse, and the fact that hyper-intelligent psychic AI may be our demise. But I think, sadly, we have news to report that broke on the other day in the news. But one thing we can probably be a little less fearful of is that talking gorillas will eventually take over the world and rule us. But it is with a sad heart that we bring to you that Coco the gorilla, who mastered sign language and showed the world what great apes can do, has passed away. She died Tuesday in her sleep at the age of 46. That's what the Gorilla Foundation said in a statement. Coco touched the lives of millions as an ambassador for all gorillas and an icon for interspecies communication and empathy, the release said. She was beloved and will be deeply missed. She was learned to communicate at a very young age. The Western the Western lowland
Coco's
gorilla.
Not from Iowa.
Yeah, the gorillas, the Western lowland Iowa gorillas, Tim, they're big.
They are.
Was born at the San Francisco Zoo in 1971 and began to learn sign language early in life. Researchers moved her to Stanford in 1974 and established the Gorilla Foundation, a nonprofit organization that works to preserve and protect gorillas. Coco and the Gorilla Foundation later moved to the Santa Cruz Mountains. She liked to read and be read to. A blog post by the Gorilla Foundation said she purred at parts of books she particularly enjoyed. She was very maternal towards kittens and has had several throughout her lifetime. Her tenderness showed people how loving a gorilla can be, the foundation said. Coco made famous friends like Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, who appeared on TV as Mr. Rogers, and Robin Williams. She used her sign language skills to communicate with them. She was said to have understood 2,000 words of spoken English, which means she probably understood only about 4 words in today's newscast, Tim.
Okay.
but she could usually keep up with conversations. The foundation says that she has taught the world a profound amount about the emotional capacity and cognitive ability of gorillas. Coco appeared in several documentaries and twice on the cover of National Geographic. The first cover featured a photo she'd taken of herself in a mirror, the foundation said. She was widely promoted through appearances and the release of a picture book about her and a kitten that lived with her. She has also been exhibited as a painter. The foundation will continue its work on conservation and preservation of gorillas with continued projects, including a sign language application featuring Coco. So our talking gorilla friend is now gone. Long live Coco.
And to Coco, I say this. You couldn't see it, but I said it anyways in sign language.
Was that sign language? Yeah. And not compelling radio. Did you ever see the video of her and Robin Williams together?
Yeah, I did. It was quite touching.
Any one of the celebrities, but with Robin Williams just sat there. He looked like a baby gorilla the way he interacted with her, but it was just so beautiful. And that she recognized him from a movie. She knew. I mean, it's amazing to me. Maybe apes will take over the world and stop the zombie apocalypse and AI from rising, Tim. Or once we've all been pretty much reduced to scavengers on this planet, maybe that's when they take over their reign.
That's true. I hope so.
We need to take a break. When we come back, it's your turn to shine, folks. It's time for Parashare here on Beyond the Darkness.
Beyond the Darkness.
Hey, welcome back to the show. This is the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Beyond the Darkness. Remember to come on out and meet Tim and I next weekend. We are going to be out in Tombstone, Arizona. Tim, this is my first trip to Tombstone. Have you ever been there?
No, I haven't. I'm looking forward to it.
Help me out. What's the name of the haunted hotel we're staying at?
We're staying at the Buford House. The Buford House.
Yeah. That's right. We're going to be at the Buford House. Mm-hmm. Tim's room is number 11, so you can just stop by, knock on the door, bring him some biscuits and tea. He loves high tea.
I do love high tea. Yeah. I love it.
So stop by. But no, if you're going to be in and around Tombstone, come on out and celebrate the 25th anniversary of the movie Tombstone with us. Johnny Ringo will be on hand. Michael Bean. Also, now you said there's a new guest involved, Tim. Billy Zane?
Yeah, Billy Zane will be there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Frank Stallone's going to be on hand. Here's my goal. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to Frank Stallone. You know, his mother was big into the psychic world.
Yeah, she was a psychic. Or she is a psychic.
So I want to see if, is she still alive?
I think she is.
Jackie Stallone?
I think she is.
Fascinating. So we're going to try to get Frank Stallone on the show and talk with Frank for a little bit. Michael Bean. We're going to try to do a little investigating and some sky watching. So come on out, spend your nights and days with Dave and Tim in Tombstone, and let's check out the skies, Tim. I want to get a chance to see what's out there and see if we notice anything, because everybody's telling us about how active the skies over Arizona are. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, tomorrow on the show, Tim, we have another very personal story, very personal. Angela Lejean is joining us, the abduction of Angela, and this is a very compelling alien abduction story. It's very powerful, too. She is very emotional about what's going on and has happened to her and her family. We'll hear about that tomorrow. Aliens, abductions, maybe hybridization.
Really?
Just throwing it out there. Yeah, so check us out on the show tomorrow for that, plus a brand new Theater of the Mind. And one more mention, I'm going to be out in Idaho in the middle of July 13th through the 15th at Wizard World Convention, and I'd love for you to join me. We'll be there along with many of Starfleet's best, Tim. Many of the members from Star Trek Next Generation, Voyager, I believe, and some other great celebrities from Buffy and Angel are going to be on hand. I'm going to be there hosting a few paranormal panels and some celebrity-moderated panels. I'd love for you to join us. It's in Boise, Idaho, Wizard World. You can find information on Wizard World and all the great conventions they hold by going to wizardworld.com when you check out. And if you want to get tickets for any of the conventions, even the ones your old pal Dave won't be at, just use Darkness20 at checkout and it'll save you 20% off the cost of the entire admission. So again, use Darkness20. Share it with your friends, family, relatives, everybody that's interested in going. Put it on your social media that if they want to go to Wizard World, they should use that discount code. And whether they want to come see me or not, it's a great way way to get in and save some money. Darkness20 is the code you want to use at wizardworld.com. Shall we get going, Mr. Dennis, into the world of Parashare?
Sure. I did want to add one note about the Bedford house. One of the rooms actually has, and rumor has it that they want to stick me in this room, has a bunch of haunted dolls in it, and I was told they want me to sleep in that room.
Sweet baby Jesus.
Yeah.
I think we should find a way to set up a video camera in there, Tim, and record it all night long.
What if I sleep in the buff?
Even better, Tim. It's like we're giving a little something extra to the fans. I might even now stream it without your knowledge.
Really?
So if you hear something crawling around on the roof,
okay.
Yeah, like I could get my fat ass up there crawling around on the roof. DDP yoga may make me a little more limber than I was before, Tim, but I don't know that I should be out crawling around on the roof.
All right. Well, why not?
All right.
Sure. Okay, let's get going then.
Let's get going. My name is Laura Lee. Not mine, Tim. That's the way this email starts off. All right. When I was an infant, my 2-year-old brother could not say my name right. He called me La La Lee. That has been my secret name for years. I've written in a couple of experiences for Parashare under that name, and they were read on air. Thank you. I plan to send more. And here's a story that I'd like to share with you and your audience. I was born and raised in a cult and in poverty. I left at the age of 15. I had no functional knowledge of the world, but I worked hard. I started a job at 17 that I later climbed into a career. I ran multiple departments and eventually ended up in a high-level administration position. I had twins and have been a great mother. I'm proud of what I have been capable of, but I did it all in tremendous sadness. I began seeing a therapist and psychologist 12 years ago. After my initial 2-hour evaluation, the doctor said, "I do not know how you function. I have major depressive disorder. At best, I'm a normal person's depressed, but a handful of people in my life know this. I've tried to attack it from all angles with little positive result. Antidepressants, natural supplements, therapist, lifestyle changes. It's a constant. It's all consuming. I never turned to drugs, drinking, or other damaging outlets because my focus was always being a mother. The past few years, I have lived in near solitude. As a suicidal person, I felt that the most responsible thing to do was to raise my kids, give them the best boost I can, and then distance myself from everyone, so my death has little impact. I am not burdening you with this information. My doctors are aware. I've been in treatment for 12 years. I never planned to have children. I would never purposely put my brain in another person. A careless night with my husband plus too much wine equaled twins, a boy and a girl. He did not want them, and I could not abort them, so I raised them alone. I love my children and have raised them well. However, my daughter suffers from depression. How can I look at her and lie, saying, just hold on, it's a temporary drop, things will get better, when I know it does not? How do I tell her, I know exactly how you feel? I want to die too. I can't. So I tried to find happiness for myself to be an example for her. Last year, my doctor suggested I have electroconvulsive shock therapy, ECT. In my desperation, I agreed. When I met with the ECT doctor, he said they use one of the 3 meds to put you under for the session. Ketamine was one of the options. I requested they use ketamine for all the sessions since I have read that they are currently doing successful trials using just that to treat MDD. I went through 8 ECT sessions with no success. It did, however, cause memory problems. I have qualified for disability retirement for many years due to MDD, but I was a master at my job. I was in charge of court cases and running databases with millions of dollars. The cult taught me that my emotional opinion does not matter, and that helped me to function like a robot. After the ECT, I became increasingly afraid that I would make a costly error at work. I can't manage a $3 million monthly payroll when randomly I don't even know where I am. I'm proud to say that my quality and quantity of work did not suffer, but I did have to retire. My goal now is to take whatever energy I have left to try to find some hope and happiness. I have to model that for my children. They're 19 and I am 41. My son will be okay. He's in the Navy. I have to help my daughter. We have gone through doctor and pill routines, and it's not working. She works very hard and is intelligent and a good, caring person. I don't care about money and things. I want stability, dependability, transportation, utilities paid, food, secure housing, which I have. In general, I'm not motivated by things most people desire. I love to learn. I love to put information together and have realizations. I'm very interested in the paranormal and have raw gifts there. I think that is what I need to explore to find my pockets of happy. I have tried to connect with groups in the past, but where I live is all about God and the devil. I respect sincerity, but I am not going to learn and grow in anything if your only answer is ask God. I've had experiences a great deal of my life. Shadow masses have appeared and moved around me. Some things do not manifest visually, but I feel pressure on my body where they are. I pick up on things in places and sometimes have great pain, like a knife scraping my bones. Oh, God. That's a visual I can actually feel.
Yep.
Once my boyfriend took me to his best friend's house. The air was so heavy there I could feel pressure and thickness. He gave me a tour of the house. I walked into his bedroom and was standing at the front of the bed when I had that horrible bone-scraping pain. I told him something bad happened here. He said, yeah, that's where my grandma shot herself. And he pointed to the wall behind where the bullet hole was. I believe I'm a sensitive of some kind, but I do not know how to nurture that. Well, first of all, Lala, pick up the book The Gift by Echo Bodine. It will help you begin that journey. But buy it now. Get it. It's very inexpensive, and it's a great book, and it will help you. I've had the feelings again, but have not been in a position to ask questions to verify anything. My ex-husband, my children's father, joined the Church of Satan when they were about 2. I know that is not devil worship, but it does involve opening gateways. I woke up one night and there was a head on the nightstand looking at me, blinking, eyes moving. I stumbled out of bed and went down the hallway to the living room. My then husband was sitting in the middle of a big pentagram on the floor with all the candles lit. The air was thick. I told him, "Stop! What are you doing?" He said he was opening gateways for wisdom. I told him to shut that mess down. I didn't want to be involved in any of that. I have enough things that show up, and I didn't want him inviting more. We fought about that. These masses would show up in the house, watch me, follow me around, and never received any contact. He did all these rituals and received 0 contact. They were more interested in me, and I was so afraid of them. I eventually had to put him out. I found that I could ignore the presence, and it would eventually go away. That is what I did. One night, something came in and was in the top right corner of my bedroom, just watching. I could feel the pressure. I got my ignore on, and it moved into the children's room where they were sleeping. They were about 3. I became enraged. I went into their room and told it to get the F out, and it did. I had spent so much time being afraid that I didn't think I had any power. A few days later, my daughter, age 3, told me that she did not like the clown that comes out of her closet. She wasn't afraid or emotional about it. She just asked if I could tell the clown to go away. I was so angry that anything was trolling and tromping around my house. I could feel waves coming off of me. It's like how sound feels. I project some kind of shield, and it goes out in a wave, pushing everything out. And I've tried to keep the house clear doing that. Eventually, I started to wonder more about what they are. What is visiting me? Why? I thought over my experiences and realized that I was the one with the fear response. What if it wasn't scary? What if it wasn't evil? So the next time something showed up, I did not force it out. I talked to it, and to my surprise, they communicate. I've had such conversations with these beings. They told me that I look like light. They explained that people take up a whole lot of space, more than just physical space the body fills. It's like an energy field. When people experience trauma and their field shrinks, allowing them space to come in. Most people are too emotional to communicate. I fluctuate from extreme sadness to emptiness. So I basically shrink in my space, which allows them in. Then I am emotionally vacant to communicate. Sometimes they will show up and tell me to flatten out, which I know means to get rid of my emotions so that I can communicate. Many have asked, can I sit with you? My answer is always no. Somehow I know that means they want to share my body, what some would call possession. The ones I talk with speak very fast. I have to repeat what they have said to get an understanding. Some speak very slow, and I don't talk to them. I push them out. They are always in groups of 2 or more, but I speak in one voice. Or they speak in one voice. It would feel like cold water wave hitting the back of my head when they arrived. I felt pretty safe with what I was doing. I was just learning. The experience was not constant. here and there over the years. I had no control over when something would show up. I couldn't figure that out. Well, one night, I made a big bonfire in the backyard. This was during a very difficult time in my life. I just stared at this bonfire for hours and sang. The next morning, I woke up in such peace. There was a being with me. I could not see him with my eyes, but I did in my mind's eye. He was dark, 10 feet tall figure with large owl-like eyes. He had wings or a cloak that he wrapped around my body. Only my eyes were exposed. I felt a safety and peace that I have never experienced. He told me his name was Uriel and said he moves through fire. Other than that, we did not really communicate. He was with me for a few days. It was wonderful. Then he told me he had to leave and that something painful was about to happen. That night, my daughter, who was then 12, ran away. She was recovered quickly. I arranged counseling for her and kept her close. Shortly after that, another being came in. He was large with taloned feet and human arms and heads. He had a protruding bottom jaw with very long canine teeth. I felt as though it was feeding on me. I could not get rid of this thing. I called my doctor and told him to put me in the mental ward and find out what is wrong with me. I spent 7 days in Zale Lipsey Hospital. They did not dope me up or anything. After a few days, the presence was gone. I think it was simply done consuming whatever it was, whatever it was after. I took a lot of tests. My diagnosis, no psychosis, MDD, intelligent, overwhelmed, or unorthodox beliefs. I have my theories as to how this developed and what is going on, but I know nothing. I need a teacher, a course, a mentor, some guidance. I could be a solid member of a team and or help other people. There is joy in that thought. That joy in me and my daughter needs to see. Any advice or contact suggestions you could send my way would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your presence on the air and candor with depression. I've listened to many other shows, been in chats, etc., and have never shared these things. After listening to you for a while, I felt compelled to reach out. I felt that you would understand. Well, that touches my heart in a way I can't even begin to tell you. As my eyes start to water here, that you feel that kind of comfort to come to us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you're going through. I understand the depression and I understand the upset. But please don't just resolve yourself that you're going to die. Don't separate yourself. That's what they want. The depression wants you to separate yourself. It wants that separation. When you start doing that, you're too into your own head. Find things like this. There are places to go. There are places to help people, whether it's homeless shelters or children's homes, hospitals. Do something to bring happiness to others, and it will come to you as well. I know that for a fact. And as far as getting out there and helping, unfortunately, if you're very open about your depression, a lot of people will avoid you like the plague because they don't know what to do. And I'm not trying to be negative or downer in this. I'm just being honest with you. That's the unfortunate side of it. So sometimes you have to do the old fake it till you make it, which doesn't sound real helpful. But it is. I mean, as a perfect example, Tim lives in misery and in pain most of his life because of the herniated discs and the pain that he's in. I suffer massive migraines, but I sit down and do the radio show. Tim powers through on a daily basis doing what he does. And you fake it till you make it because it's worth it on those good days when you push yourself and you say, I can do this and I can make it through. Sometimes we have the biggest and best breakthroughs. Start off with the book, The Gift by Echo Bodine. Then there's a gentleman by the name of John Oliver, not the comedian. Is it John J. Oliver, Tim? Is that
I think it might
our
be.
buddy?
Yeah.
You can find him on Facebook, or just contact me on Facebook and I'll connect you to John. As a teacher and a mentor, he might have some insights, and he is a beautiful being of light. And I don't mean that in any kind of corny aspect. He's really a powerful teacher and aid to many people. So I believe, Laura, that there is help for you, and there is ways to get that help. So please don't give up. And I know it's easy to want to give into that darkness and that lone, but you mentioned the biggest thing. You have to do this for your children. If your daughter is depressive and she knows you check out, you're only setting that ball in motion that now she knows that's an okay, acceptable way. And I know it's hard when you have to keep living through this pain. There's another thing I want you to do, and I've been beating this drum a lot lately, but look for somebody that does EMDR treatment in your area. EMDR treatment that helps with post-traumatic stress disorder and helps alleviate some bad things. And growing up in a cult, there's a lot of things that you need to process. And you can think you're as strong as you are and that you can get through, but obviously it's not working 100% because there are cracks in that armor. EMDR therapy, I believe, can help you. And if you can find a good therapist in your area and just explain that you grew up as part of a cult, maybe they'd even be willing to work out something and trade with you for, helping you with your therapy, and maybe they can write a report on it and get something from it in exchange. I don't know, but at least it's worthy of checking out. And if you come to that point and just need help, let Tim and I know, and we'll see if there's something else we can do to aid you or find you a therapist. But please don't give up. Don't give in. All right? We're here. Just email us. Dave@darknessradio.com, Tim@darknessradio.com, and we'll do what we can to help you. All right, our next letter begins. Hi, Dave and Tim. Huge fan, long-time listener, first-time emailer. I thought this might be of interest to you for a future Parashare episode of the Beyond the Darkness. It's wordy and probably sounds more like a theater of the mind story, but I wanted to describe what happened to me as accurately as possible. I now live in Melbourne, Australia, but I've had a huge interest in the paranormal stemming from seeing Ghostbusters as a kid and then getting deeper into the subject with the BBC's infamous Halloween broadcast of Ghost Watch, which is still an incredibly effective piece of television. I've been investigating the paranormal since the early 2001, independently at first and then with a highly regarded group in the West Midlands area of the UK. After many years of incredible experiences with them, I moved to Dubai for a few years and even managed to stumble across a paranormal incident over there that was able to do some investigating. Now that I have done some ghost hunting down under, I feel very lucky to have done this in over 3 continents. What I would like to tell you about, though, is an experience from my time in the West Midlands in 2003. I've experienced many unexplained and creepy things over the years, but I never really felt too scared, and I always try to keep a high level and a level head and stay objective in investigations. This experience, however, still scares me to my core to this day, and when people ask me about the scariest thing I've encountered, this is what I tell them, and it definitely creeps them out. I was living in an old terrace house in Wolverhampton and had been there since the summer of 2000. When myself and 3 university friends moved in while we were studying. In 2001, my friends left the house as they had to do a year out doing a work placement, and I was now working in the town after graduating. I was happy to stay in the house, so some other friends moved in. They graduated in 2003, and one by one, they left the house, leaving the place to myself. To help you picture the scene, terrace houses are essentially stuck together in one long row on a street. Our street was incredibly long, and our house was towards the end of it, which was a dead end, and actually had a very large, beautiful graveyard on the other side of the wall. I've never found those places especially scary. Actually, I find them quite peaceful and don't really find them to be a place where I would get into and experience anything when ghost hunting. Because of the nature of terrace houses, you can only enter the rear of the building through a narrow stone back passage entrance which leads into the kitchen. Ours had never really been used. The gate door was locked and padlocked, and the alleyway was full of stuff owned by our landlord at the time, so it was never used, but extremely secure. From the kitchen, you go through a living room, then down a corridor towards the front door and into the street. My room was there at the front of the house with the door into the corridor. I was now looking for a new place to move by myself and had been doing paranormal investigations in my spare time for a few years now. From doing this, I found that I had trouble going to sleep at a reasonable hour and was becoming a bit of a night owl. This one particular night, I was lying wide awake. I had watched a few movies and did some reading to try and wind down for the night and ready for work for the next day. It was well past 1 a.m., and I was still wide awake. I laid in bed. I couldn't switch it off and was just tuned into the silence of the house and the stillness of the street outside. I thought I could hear some very faint noises like movement. At first, I thought it was my neighbors, but then I realized that they were students too, had graduated and left, leaving next door completely empty. I then got concerned that someone had broken in via the rear entrance of the house, but they would have had to make an incredible amount of noise, breaking into the gate door, scrambling over the landlord's junk, old washing machines, broken furniture in the hallway, not to mention the noise of breaking through the door. So it couldn't have been an intruder. I was hyper alert at this time and listened, going through my mind what to do, how to defend myself, and how I would call the police without giving myself away. I was scared enough by this time, but then my fear grew as I then heard the noise clearer. It was gentle, slow footsteps on carpet, and it was on 4 legs. From the sound of the carpet, whatever it was walking through the living room and getting closer. I've had many friends with dogs, and this sounded like a large, lumbering old Labrador slowly walking, except I could hear the footsteps and the weight of them. This was a big dog. I was absolutely frozen to the spot in bed, and with my face lying toward the door of my room. Luckily, it was locked, but all I could do was lie there listening. Whatever it was got to my door. There was no breathing noises, nothing but the sound of it walking, which then stopped right outside my door. I then heard a long, slow, scratching noise on the door, as if this dog had raised a paw to the door, about waist height, and slowly dragged its paw down that door. The claws sounded blunt, like a dog, but big. It wasn't an aggressive scratching noise, just as though whatever it was wanted me to know that it was there. I was sweating, absolutely terrified, as the slow scratching continued, trying to figure out what to do. Scary stuff had happened on investigations, but I could always stay calm and keep objective as to what was going on, analyzing the situation. But this was different. I had no weapons of any kind, no way out effectively, and I could not pluck up the courage to confront it. After a few minutes, I rationalized it all to myself that it was nothing paranormal, buried my head under the duvet, and forced myself to block out the noise until I eventually went to sleep, drained and on a damp pillow. The next morning, there was nothing. No marks on the door, no sign of forced entry, no way any animal could get into this place. Nothing. It was so strange that after years of living in the place without incident, this happened to me. I lived in the house for a few weeks after without any further problems, but I moved out as quick as I could. Nothing like it has happened to me ever since, but I can still recall the experience vividly, and it still gives me the shivers. Keep up the great work, guys. Take care and stay healthy. Your fan, John, not your fawn, Tim.
Oh, okay.
It's not our fawn.
Oh, right.
Although I'd like to have a fawn.
It would be nice to have, yeah.
Hi, Dave. I'm listening to you and Tim chuckle over a balloon story and thought I'd share mine. Not long after the first incarnation of it was on TV, 2 friends and I went to a trip in Los Angeles. One friend was a travel agent, and we got a nice room, but it had 1 king-size bed and a cot. We also got balloons for some damn reason. I took the cot the first night, and when I woke up at the oh my God in the morning, wait, what the hell? I took the cot the first night, and when I woke up at oh my God in the morning, it was to go to the bathroom. Those balloons were floating at my eye level, less than a foot away from me as I sat up on the cot. The first thing I thought of was, we all float down here. Mm-hmm. The second thing was that it was either one of my friends that encountered this. I would have been woken up by a thud as they hit the ground. So balloons aren't inherently scary, but when the universe aligns, even the most innocuous stuff can give you pause. After listening to you explain how you politely respond to certain examples of a sign from God, I'm reminded of the joke about the guy trapped on his roof during a flood. As a canoe, motorboat, and helicopter came by, he declines. He says that God would save him. After his inevitable demise, he asks God why he didn't save him. God said, I sent a canoe, motorboat, and helicopter. What more did you want? My takeaway is that you see, hear, and smell something that brings to mind your loved one. It wouldn't hurt a thing to take it as a sign. Congrats on Midnight in the Desert. And that comes from Tony Collins. Thank you, Tony. Just giving me a little perspective, Tim.
Oh, okay.
It's a little verbal bitch slap, I think, trying to keep me open to the possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
G'day, Tim and Dave. What the hell? And you're capitalized.
Oh, well.
G'day, Tim and Dave. You have a new listener from down under. I don't know if this is a man or woman yet, so I'm already just doing the corny guy version of the voice.
Right.
I only discovered the show recently when looking for something new to listen to on an impromptu road trip. I've always been interested in the topics that you guys cover, mainly thanks to my mother, who bombarded me with all sorts of horror and mysterious movies as soon as I reached my teen years. So many of the classics piqued my interest, and seeing that, my parents started buying me mysteries and paranormal books. I guess the rest is history. Now you guys have me hooked too. I have a few stories of my own, and I want to share the two most formative with you guys today. The first of which might be a new topic for your show. I haven't gone back far enough to see how many Aussie legends you've covered in the past, but first, for you or not, here's my story of the Yowie, Tim.
Oh.
You used to smoke a lot of Yowie Wowie in college, didn't you?
I had my fair share, yeah.
When I was about 12, the letter states, I went to a friend's house to stay overnight at the end of the school week. My friend and his brother lived on a street toward the edge of town. He lived in a smaller town where that side of town contained the race course for horse racing and our little airport, between which was all Australia bushland and mangrove swamps. No thanks. Doesn't sound interesting to me at all, Tim.
No, none at all.
Bush, mangrove. Nope, that means there's just all kinds of things that want to eat me. My friend's brother had a basketball game that night, and so the three of us walked the half an hour or so into town to attend his match. When it finished, we killed some time hanging around the streets being rebellious teenagers as boys do at that age, with no parental supervision. Sometime around midnight, we started the walk back to their house. We decided to cut through some of the bush to shave a bit of time off the walk, with their house having a fence that backed directly into the tree line. About halfway through the scrub, we heard cracking branches and just general sounds of movement over the noise of the wind. Being three young guys in a group, we pretended to be tough. I don't know why I suddenly Porky Pig there, Tim. We pretended to be tough and unfazed by it all. But while the noises were definitely keeping up with us, just off the trail that we were following, eventually, we heard something loud shift not far behind us. Shift, Tim.
Oh, shift. Right.
Yeah,
shift.
They didn't hear something loud shit.
Well,
yeah, no, just shift.
Yeah.
And we turned around to look. I never saw any detail, and the other guys never described much more than I could see. But out of the trees and across the trail walked something huge, Tim.
Huge.
It was easily a couple of feet taller than we were. Very broad around the shoulders, and it moved with surprising speed. To me, it was simply a silhouette in a black smudge of movement. But it was massive. And seeing it was enough for all three of us to sprint toward the house. None of us said a word at the time. We just ran, Tim. But I vaguely remember yelling out when we first saw it. When we reached their fence, we jumped over it and ran inside. We talked about it a lot that night. What we thought we saw, comparing impressions. Whenever we get together, which is very rarely, this was 20 years ago now, we all moved away. The topic still somehow finds its way into conversation. I feel like this is a moment of deja vu. Like I've read this story before, Tim. I'm getting the feeling people are just resending me their same stories over and over every few months.
You think so?
Doesn't this sound familiar to you?
No.
Or am I having a Mandela effect moment? Or as it should be called,
Douglas,
the Kirk Douglas effect.
Yeah, I think you're having a Kirk Douglas moment.
Yeah. As you probably gathered, the Yowie is our Bigfoot. They're huge, Tim. They apparently stink. We didn't smell anything but typical damp smells of the bushland, and have been spotted since European colonization. I feel lucky in a sense that I got to see what I saw. My father and uncle spotted something years ago, too, in the mountains while on a fishing trip. But they never really told me the story fully, simply that they saw something in the trees once while fishing up in the snow. Changing direction now, my other story is more recent and involves a potential haunting, Tim. When I first moved out of the home, I headed north to Brisbane. That's how you say that, right? Brisbane, not Brisbane?
I believe it's Brisbane, yeah.
Brisbane.
Yeah.
I headed north to Brisbane, where I moved into an old Queenslander-style house with my cousin. We shared the rent and went to work setting it up to be an adequate bachelor pad. I don't know. I felt to make that so breathy and dramatic.
It kind of reminded me of like Masterpiece Theater. It was kind of good, yeah.
The first few months living there were uneventful. I soon started dating someone, and she began spending more time around the house. Timing-wise, it seems like her presence was what triggered the strangeness that began. Because, long story short, it ended up following us to another home later in the following year. But anyway, once she started staying the night, we began to hear heavy footsteps on the old wooden floors. My cousin was staying elsewhere at the time, visiting family, and we were staying ourselves in the house. The first night we could hear someone walking around in the living room in what sounded like work boots, pacing back and forth. This happened a couple of times that week. Both times I got up to check what the sound was, and so my terrified girlfriend could relax and finally go to sleep. But both times I found no one there, and the noises ceased for the rest of the night after I opened the bedroom door. The following week, one night, the footsteps began to have more purpose. They at one point sounded like they stopped on the other side of our bedroom door. That night, when it stopped at the door, the sound stopped completely again for the night, as if it got to the door and simply vanished. But this point, we were getting annoyed. More so than scared, because our sleep was getting interrupted more nights than not by these noises. It was an old house and did creak a lot, but we were used to those noises, and this was something very different and convincingly deliberate. One day while at work, I got a panicked call from my girlfriend telling me she was getting out of the damn house until I got home that day. She had been sitting on the edge of the bed, sorting through some clothes when the bedroom door had slammed shut right next to her. When she opened the door and entered the living room, the door slammed again, and so she got right the hell out of the house. With the footsteps still happening on and off at night, we would sometimes wake up to find kitchen cupboards sporadically open, or the blinds pulled to one side where they had been closed before we went to bed. Items around the house started to go missing. The TV remote disappeared a few times, simply to reappear a day or two later in stupid places, like the windowsill in the bathroom or on top of the washing machine. Tim, I'm going to break away from the story for a second.
Okay.
Are you starting to get the idea that maybe somebody's living in their attic or in their walls?
Yeah.
Right? I'm just picking up that vibe right now.
Yep.
Because if like, what ghost is like, I'm going to go watch a little TV. Oh, it's out the window, and sets the remote on the window or in the bathroom.
Right.
It seems like there's a person there.
I would think
access.
so. Yeah.
Now, I know he said he didn't see anything. I'm just saying, sounds kind of weird to me. I'd be more uncomfortable thinking that maybe it's something unseen, Tim, something living in your home.
Right.
That's just me trying to make you feel better. Don't worry. It's nothing paranormal. It's just something creepy and living in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Huh. I'm just saying. Could be. It all culminated after about 3 months when I was home alone one day and having a shower late that afternoon before going to dinner. My girlfriend was out and was expected to return home later that night. My cousin had gone off to university. He stayed at the house sometimes and heard the footsteps too, but slept with headphones on quite a bit and didn't find it as big a problem as we did. And so I knew the house was empty. The door to the bathroom had one of those old frosted windows where you can see splotchy, vague shapes but no detail. And I had just stepped out of the shower when I saw movement through the glass. I saw what looked like a head and shoulders approach the window and stop. It was accompanied by the usual heavy footsteps. It stood there. It seemed solid black on the other side of the door. Then it simply faded away in front of my eyes. It just vanished. I moved out of that place within the following 2 weeks. I organized to get a place with my girlfriend, and we got out and never looked back. My cousin said that the strangeness left with us, as he never heard or saw anything since. The house we moved into had a lot of strange things happen too, and it seemed like whatever it was that followed this girl around was attached to her specifically. We're not in touch anymore, but I don't doubt that she probably still experiences strange paranormal occurrences. All right, those are my 2 tales. Nothing huge, but both, for me, were the seeing is believing aspect that have made me so interested in these topics. Next on my list to do one day is hopefully see a UFO. Thanks, guys. Keep up the amazing podcasts. We'll try to catch you, Dave, next time you come to Australia, if you can bring yourself to the risk of running into a drop bear again. And that comes from Andrew. Oh, sure. Mock me about the terrifying drop bear. Real funny, people. Real funny. You know, it's always funny, Tim, until somebody's eaten and mauled by a drop bear.
Yeah, it always is. Yeah.
I live in Fort Smith, about 75 miles southwest of Eureka Springs. I've stayed at the Crescent twice and experienced something both times. The first time in 2008, I caught the ellipse of a shadowy figure shaped like a Victorian-dressed female at the end of the hallway on the second floor. In 2003, I saw what I still think was the ghost of the Old West outlaw Bill Doolin walking on the front porch. I've seen pictures of Doolin taken after his death, and his spirit looked just like him. I have heard he was captured there sometime in the late 1800s. I run a news website in Fort Smith, and I'm pretty skeptical about this stuff, but I know what I saw, and that comes from Dennis McCaslin. Thank you, Dennis. We appreciate that story. And we're back with more of the best in Parashare, Tim, as we read more of our emails. And if you have your own encounters with the strange and supernatural, email them to me, dave@darknessradio.com. Are you ready for our next letter, Tim?
Yes, I am.
People are getting more and more creative with their opening to us, Tim.
Oh, good. Good.
Hey, Dave and Tim, Tim and Dave, or even better, Dim Shrenis, like Bennifer Athbles. Now they're blending our names.
Now I'm just confused.
Instead of Bennifer, we're Dim Shrenis.
Okay.
Mixture of the two of us.
I get it. All right.
I listened as you read my last email on Parashare a few weeks ago, and OMG, my giant furball story sounded pretty stupid, but seriously, it scared the crap out of me. What do you want? I was a kid. I'm pretty damn sure Dylan, who you dubbed the Nancy boy who sent in the balloon story, feels my pain. Shut up. Anyway, I think there was a story someone submitted to Parashare a while ago that said they had some type of giant furball experience. So I thought it was interesting that I had a similar experience and wanted to share it with you guys. Also, my 10-year-old listened with me as you read my emailed stories and thought you guys were hilarious. Me, not so much.
Sorry.
Devil's Toupee, LOL, I was dying. And Pierre, yeah, not sure who came up with that name, but I don't think he really pictured him as an angry Frenchman, as he was pretty much mostly a creepy prankster ghost. Whatever. You can dismiss me all you want. Pierre does not care. Pierre Poltergeist at your service. Okay, so I'll try to not send you guys lame experiences. No, please do.
No.
Those are our favorites.
Yeah.
I'll try not to send you guys lame experiences or experiences you would deem lame, but I don't know how to even judge that, obviously. But I will send you some of the things that happened over the years that we experienced in one particular house. All right, but understand, I cannot guarantee that we won't mock you openly during this email.
Right.
Well, probably not. Please don't ever take it seriously, folks. We got to have a little fun with this stuff. And from time to time, you read all these dark stories and creepy stuff. Once in a while, we just like to have a little fun. And we appreciate those stories. Yes, we do. Thank you very much. Pierre's done now, Tim. I'll start off with a scary experience involving Pierre that happened when I was in high school. My cousin, who was the same age as myself, had moved in with us. We shared my room. And we had a day bed, the one with the bed that pulls out from under the other one. We had a small black cocker spaniel named Astro. Ruh-roh, Rastro. That's what it says right here, Tim.
Oh, good.
So see, a day bed, Tim, you know what a day bed is?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
It's a short bunk bed, Tim. Right? More proof that bunk beds are the portal to hell. All right. They had a black cocker spaniel named Astro, who would sleep in the room with them at night.
Okay.
At the foot of either one of our beds. I'm trying to imagine you saying this in your slow, deep, dramatic voice, or maybe now in Astro's voice. Damn it, get out of my head. We were both lying in our beds with the lights off, going to sleep. This night, Astro was sleeping on my bed. We were not talking at all like high school girls do, as we were sleepy. I don't know how long we were lying there, maybe half an hour or so. Out of nowhere, my cousin, the dog, and myself, all three of us sat up at the same time. We all looked over at the open bedroom door. Astro started barking. And we saw a small, black, human-shaped shadow that was darker than dark in the hallway. Yes, it was darker than the dark. Once we all sat up and looked at it, it stood there for a second and ran somewhere into the hallway, scaring the crap. And there's multiple P's, Tim. So do I say scaring the crap?
Yes, you do. Yeah, like a bird taking off. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It scared the crap out of us. In that same room, my cousin and I had pictures and things hung on the walls. At random times, day and night, things would literally fly off the walls from the other side of the room, right in front of our faces. There was nothing we could think that would make such a push and just pop them off the wall, launching them. Anything you bought brand new into the house would break right after you brought it into the house. Curling irons, hair dryers, etc. Yeah, the demonic realm hates hair supplies, Tim.
Oh, God,
I don't know if people know that.
Yeah.
That's why Tim and I shave our heads. We actually have full, luxurious, like George Clooney locks.
Yep.
From the 80s George Clooney, those full locks.
Yep.
But we got rid of them because ghosts and poltergeists, and they don't like hair supplies, Tim.
Nope.
The faucet in the kitchen would turn on full blast at random times. You could hear someone or something running around upstairs when you were downstairs. My sister, who is 6 years younger than me, would cry and make me go check the upstairs for an intruder because she would hear someone up there, and she would hear the closet doors open and close. She would think our mom or sister were there, but I would check, and no one would be home. One of our cats, my mom and I witnessed this. We were sleeping on the couch and did a full flip in the air because something scared her. Your mom or the cat? And not really specified here.
Yeah.
Mom just jumped up. She's like, zoinks, and does like a full backflip in the air. I'm going to guess it's probably the cat, though, Tim.
It's a talented mom.
Yeah. My oldest sister had a clock radio in her room, and one day she walked downstairs and heard it come on. She went back upstairs and got by her room, and before she entered the room, Tim, it turned off.
Uh-oh.
This happened several times. On the last time, as she was walking up the dark stairway, something whispered her name loudly in her face. Mary.
You know, the wind cries Mary. That's according to Jimi Hendrix.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
My older sister had a desk in her room with a large desk mirror on top of it. The house was 2 stories, and this happened during the summertime while we were out of school. We were all home one day and heard no noises from upstairs. Later in that day, one of us went to her room, and her mirror that was on the desk had shattered on the floor. But it was still almost together. It was right at the bottom of the desk with the reflective side face up. With as big as the mirror was and as short as the desk was, if it were to fall over, it sure would have fallen down on the reflective side, and it would have been facing the floor. And we didn't hear anything at all from upstairs. And for sure, should have heard the large mirror fall and shatter on the floor. See, now we're getting into some stories.
Yeah.
What was with the hairball story, Tim?
I don't know.
Is that the way you break the ice? You send us a lame story about Donald Trump's toupee flopping across your floor?
I think so, yeah. It's just a warm-up.
Dear Dave, you dared to bring up the name of our president during your show. I don't listen to your show to talk politics, so I'd appreciate it if you just stick to the paranormal, dickhead. Thank you. Your fan, Mary. Mary.
And the wind cries, Mary.
Yeah. You would walk into the kitchen, and there would be a cup or two on the counter. And later, when you would go back in the kitchen and no one was there, the cup would be gone, Tim.
No
longer on the counter. You'd walk back in the kitchen again, and it would be back.
It's like David Blaine is at your house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My older sister's friend got to experience this, and it really freaked him out. Yeah, there's nothing worse than creepy haunted cookware.
Or magicians.
Right.
Yeah.
When you would wash clothes, items would disappear from the dryer. I remember specifically one day when I was doing a load of laundry, I wanted a certain shirt to wear. I washed it with the other clothes.
What?
And then moved them to the dryer.
No.
When they were done, I took all the clothes out.
No.
And the shirt I wanted to wear...
No, don't say it.
...was gone.
No.
It was gone, Tim.
No.
It was gone.
No.
The shirt was gone, Tim.
No.
Yeah, it was gone.
It was?
Wasn't there anymore.
It was gone?
Fast forward a few days, and I walked past the washer and dryer, and lo and behold,
it was there.
My shirt that had gone missing was folded nicely on the dryer. Mind you, my mom and sisters didn't touch it.
What?
I know this because I asked.
Oh, God.
One night, my mom and I were the only ones home. We had gotten in an argument, and I was pissed. So I went to my room.
Oh, I bet.
While I was in there, with the door cracked open, I heard my mom loudly yell my name 3 times.
Cheyenne! Cheyenne! Cheyenne!
What, Tim? I'm ending to the story. You got to lend that bit of authenticity.
Yeah.
I opened the door and yelled back with a snarky,
What?
It's very good. Yeah.
She asked me what I wanted, and I was so confused. I went downstairs and said that she had just yelled for me 3 times. What did she want? She looked at me weird and said, I didn't call you. Oh. What?
Oh.
I told her she yelled my name, and she said she didn't.
Yeah.
It was so loud, and this house was so small, there's no way she wouldn't have heard it if someone else was yelling my name.
Cheyenne!
But yet she heard nothing. I heard her voice loud and clear.
Yep.
Cheyenne!
After we first moved in there, my older sister and I had separate rooms right next to each other. Both of our beds were against the shared wall. At night, we would hear knocking on the wall.
Come in.
Would think that it was the other doing it. There were several times that happened, and we talked about it in the morning.
Probably a woodpecker.
Neither of us had been knocking on the wall.
It's probably a construction crew.
That mini theater of the mind was brought to you by Dave and Tim.
Ah.
Another thing that happened after we first moved in, I was around 10 to 12 years old, was that I would wake up in my bed frame shaking.
Oh?
Think it was one of those? Have you ever shaken your bed doing that?
I have just a one-man session.
That happened quite a few times, and I could never figure out what was causing it. It would scare me so bad. All of these things happened to us as kids, but never to my mom.
Cheyenne!
After we were grown and moved out, she told us that she thought we were on drugs. Real nice, Mom. And FYI, no, we weren't on drugs. But were the drugs in you? That's the real question.
Cheyenne!
You kind of sound like a parrot when you do that.
Are you on the dope? That's the Dutchie on the left-hand side.
She had several experiences there, but not as frequent or as intense as we had. All right, now, I don't know, Tim. Let me refresh this last sentence.
Sure.
Because I'm a little confused.
Okay.
All things happened to us as kids, but never to my mom! Exclamation point, exclamation point.
Ah.
And after we moved out, she thought that we were on drugs. So what does it tell you? In that sentence, it happened to who?
You.
The kids. Who didn't it happen to?
Mom.
And Mom thought you were so crazy that she thought you were on
drugs.
But in the next sentence, she said she had several experiences there, but not as frequent or as intense as we had. Obviously,
Cheyenne!
She's on drugs because even her short-term memory cannot stay from one sentence to another, Tim.
Right.
I can only remember 2 stories from her when we no longer lived there. One morning after cleaning the toilet, she walked away from it and it flushed. And another morning, she felt someone put their hand on her shoulder.
Oh, my God.
And turned around expecting one of us to be there. But no one was there, Tim.
No.
No one.
No.
Cheyenne, where are you?
I know there are more stories as we lived there for 8+ years, but these are the ones that stick out in my mind. So this community that we lived in was named after battles. Street names are Saratoga, Lexington, Bunker Hill, Champlain, Concord Boulevard, and the community was called Concord. There were so many kids in there who claimed their houses were haunted. I never heard of anyone seeing soldiers or anything battle-related, but later on we wondered if it was because it was named after battles. I ended up living in 3 different townhouses in the community, and each one had its own ghostly paranormal issues and stories. Next email, I will give you some of the experiences in the second one that I lived in that was super scary and haunted. Your fan,
Cheyenne.
maybe she won't write to us again after this story. I don't know.
I would hope she would, because I want to find.
I would too.
I want to find out if you're a jet. Are you a jet all the way? Because that's one of the battles too, isn't it?
When you're a shark, you are.
Oh, that's true too.
During my mother's final illness, she was in the hospital. She was hospitalized. I had left the room and was standing in the hall, maybe 20 feet away from a total unobstructed view of the door of the room. The floor was laid out like a starfish. The halls were short and ran out from a central nurse's station. As I watched the door, an old man came out of her room, looked up and down the hall, turned and walked back into the room. I was a little confused and surprised. Holy crap, where did he come from? I followed him back into the room to find that Mother was there, alone. And that comes from Runky Yago, Tim. Runky Yago. Sounds like kind of a rash that you might get on trips. I don't know.
Yeah.
Good. What is it? I got some Runky Yago.
I don't know, but the minute somebody says they're laying out my starfish, I tune right out.
Runky's like, you dick, stop picking on my name. Hey, Dave and Tim.
Hi.
I've recently been listening to older episodes of Darkness Radio and came across an episode in which you spoke about the Mandela effect from March 2016. Dave, you theorized that people who have dual memories of Kirk Douglas being both alive and dead. I guess Kirk Douglas is my Schrodinger's cat, isn't he, Tim?
He is, yes.
And Berenstein versus Berenstain Bears, etc., may have those memories because of an experience they had where they should have died but survived. Your idea was that they died in one dimension or universe but survived the same experience in this one, or else their spirit left the other universe and came to this one. I'm not sure which. Then I listened to Beyond the Darkness podcast about the Mandela effect. You brought up the should have died experience again. I like you.
Oh.
No, it's I like you. Remember Kirk Douglas being both dead and alive. But I wanted that sentence to just marinate in me for a few minutes, Tim. I like you.
Oh, okay.
But that's not what it was meant. I like you. I don't know why I suddenly went into Shatner. I like you. Remember Kirk Douglas being both dead and alive. And remember both versions of the Berenstain Bears. I remember some of the different company logos that your guest mentioned in the podcast. I've also lived through something that possibly should have killed me, but didn't. When I was 14, I had gone with a friend to the store to pick up some groceries for our mothers, Tim. Groceries. For their mothers.
Not groceries.
For their mothers, Tim.
Not mothers.
Groceries for them. What? Since my friend's house was closer to the store, on our way back, we stopped at her house first to drop off the groceries. She lived in the top floor of a 2-family house with a staircase that went straight from the front door to the door of her apartment. We were in a bit of a hurry to get back to my house, so we ran up the stairs, carelessly leaving the front door halfway open and tracking in snow from our boots, stomping all the way up the stairs. After dropping off the stuff we had bought for her mom, we prepared to leave to go to my house. I was the first out the door, carrying my paper bag in front of me, forgetting that we had tracked in snow. I know where this is going, Tim.
Where's it going?
Bad things are about to happen. I live in a place called Minnesota, Tim.
Oh, yes.
And if you come in with wet feet on stairs, Tim, nothing good can happen.
That's right.
I placed my foot onto the top step. I slipped and fell down the stairs. Oh, crap. I should have read the next line first. Not tumbling down the stairs, basically flying down the stairs. Not as dramatic, though, for our audience. This was one of those times when everything seems to be happening in slow motion. As I was falling, I suddenly remembered that we had left the front door halfway open.
Uh-oh.
Suddenly sound like Eeyore. Probably just going to fall down the stairs anyway. Oh, bother. I knew that if I didn't do something, my head would hit the edge of the door. So I stuck my left arm out and pushed the door out of the way. somehow twisting a bit in midair to land on my back. Falling an entire story and landing on my back had knocked the breath out of me, and I lay there on the floor, unable to breathe. My friend was at the top of the stairs crying and screaming, "She's dead! She's dead!"
Cheyenne?
After a minute or so, I finally was able to breathe and let her know I was, in fact, still alive. Strangely, neither my friend nor my mother came down the stairs to check on me after I was able to speak again. They remained at the top of the stairs, my friend screaming and her mother standing there with a dumbfounded expression on her face. Thanks for that, friends. The funny thing is, I can remember falling down the stairs in two different ways, but I can only remember landing once. In one scenario, I'm certain I was falling headfirst, the front of my body facing down, my bag of groceries between me and the stairs, but that's not how I fell, and I didn't land face down. I fell more or less upright, tilted forward a little, head facing the wall, throwing my arm out to push open the door out of my way and landing on my back. If your theory is right, Dave, maybe, just maybe, I had the same experience in another universe or dimension, and in that version of reality, my head struck the door. I never took physics in school, but I would imagine that the impact of a 100-pound girl falling one story and hitting her head on the edge of that door would indeed kill her. Thanks for reading my story, Dave, and I hope you and Tim have great success with Beyond the Darkness. And that comes from Valerie, Tim.
Oh, thanks, Valerie.
Her name is Valerie. Dear Dave and Tim with two M's. I didn't write it, Tim. I'm just reading it that way. Dear Dave and Timimum. I'm Isaac Davenport. I'm contacting you after getting off the phone with an old friend of mine. I would rather not mention my friend's name right now, so let's call him John. John is a friend from high school. We keep in contact. We consider each other good friends. John called me tonight after talking about the normal, mundane things. I asked about his youngest daughter, Jess. John tells me she's been having nightmares, which are vivid enough to send her running into her parents' room in fear. When Jess is asked about the nightmare, the fear is palpable, and she will not discuss it. Sometimes she screams in order to avoid speaking about it. As John and I's conversation continued, he began talking about other things, dark, formless things that he has seen once or twice. At this point, I push him for more information because I can feel a wall of emotion building. It was at this point John described a situation that happened to his wife, Anne. What she described was a sleep paralysis episode where she felt something was holding her down. Then John expanded on his encounter, which lasted roughly 30 minutes, of a web-like pitch-black blob in the corner of his room watching him. At this point, I began telling him that he and his family needed to call on Jesus if they continued to have this encounter and this potential entity. Luckily, he has a church family who believes him, and I feel I could eventually help in blessing of the house, but I'm in fear for my friend and his family. I know these entities feed on negative emotion, fear, stress, and anger, and John has had plenty of this in his family's life in the last few years. He had been between jobs on several occasions. Anne has a degenerative back problem that will eventually leave her nearly wheelchair bound. There are a number of things that could have caused this entity to be attracted to this family. To be frank, I felt like reaching out to you on behalf of my friend. These are good people in a potentially dangerous situation. I was wondering if you had anyone you could recommend who might be willing to help in Orlando area if the situation begins to snowball out of control. Best regards, Isaac Davenport. Isaac, contact Bill Bean. You'll find him on Facebook. He is kind of our go-to guy, and he has helped many people. I get emails from people all the time that we have sent his way, and they feel better afterwards. So Bill Bean, he's been featured on a few of the different paranormal shows, but it is, in his estimation, his job. He's been called from the light to help people with this kind of problem. Bill Bean, go check it out, and we wish you and your friends the best of luck. Our next email, Tim, begins pushy, telling us how to deal with this and how to talk and what to say.
Really?
Starts off with, just refer to me as Jay on the air.
Okay.
Who do you think you are, Jay on the air?
Yeah, Jay.
Telling us how to do our job.
Jay on the air.
Jay on the air.
Right.
Hey, Dave and Tim. I'm writing to share two quick stories about dream visitations I've experienced of family members shortly after they passed away. The first is about my great-grandmother who passed away in 2007 in April in a nursing home. On the day she passed away, I was in my freshman year of high school, sitting in class, and she was surrounded by my grandfather, the same grandfather that the second story is about, grandmother, mother, and aunts. A few weeks after her funeral, I had one of the most vivid dreams of my life. I dreamt that I was in the bedroom in my house she stayed in before going to the nursing home. She was sitting there on her bed, absolutely glowing and wearing a long, flowing white dress. I remember that I was standing straight at attention in front of her and could not move. Directly behind her, I could see the window was open, and it was a beautiful day outside. I heard birds chirping, and there were butterflies flying around the room. What she said, though, is something I'll never forget. After giving me a kiss on the cheek and a hug, she started to speak to me telepathically. This was shocking because I could never communicate with her as she spoke Italian, and I didn't. She told me that a family member was going to be okay as she pointed to her chest and said, "It's nothing." She then told me to tell my family what she said, and that although they wouldn't believe me at first, all I had to do was do the sign of the cross and say that this is what she did before she passed away. When I woke up, I got my mother and grandparents together and told them about my dream. While they didn't believe me at first, when I followed my great-grandmother's instructions, there was suddenly not a dry eye in the room. My mother kept saying, "But you were at school. How did you know?" When she calmed down, she told me that indeed my great-grandmother did cross herself before she passed. What she said next shocked me even more. I didn't know that one of my aunts had went in for a biopsy for a mass that she had in her breast. Later that day, the doctor called and said that the lump was benign and not cancer, as she had feared. The second story is less shocking than the first, but interesting nevertheless. My maternal grandfather passed away in June of 2012. He was like a second father to me, and I was devastated when he died. A few months after his death, I had a dream where he looked young and healthy. He gave me a bear hug and started to talk. Suddenly, he told me that he had to go, but to tell my sister, "Trust what the dead say." When I woke up, I was in tears. I got up and went into the kitchen after hearing sounds of my mother and sister crying. When I asked what was wrong, my mother told me to sit down and let my sister tell me the story about the dream she had had about my grandfather that night. I immediately got chills up my spine and told them that I had a dream about him that same night. She told me that in her dream she was with my grandfather and he looked frustrated but young and healthy. She told me that she was asking him what to do, some problems she was going through in her life and how to overcome them. He kept looking at her and saying, "Smile." When she kept asking for answers, he looked up again and said, "Trust what the dead say." After I heard this and told them about my dream, we all started to cry, including my grandmother, who came up the stairs crying when she heard us speaking. As you can see from these two stories, we're an emotional bunch. These two dreams felt like real life. They're so incredibly real that I'm convinced there's an afterlife. Dave, I hope you read these stories and they give you a bit of peace, that there is something after death, and we don't just fade into blackness. Thanks. That comes from Jay in Brooklyn, New York. P.S. I was listening to the March 13th Paranormal News and Paranormal episode and want to respond to what you said about the haters taking time out to email you with their venom and vitriol. I want to say thank you. Thank you for all you do, for the amazing content and shows that you and Tim put out. For every hater that writes you, just know that there are thousands of listeners that absolutely love your show. I've been listening for years. Listening to your shows helped me get through my grandfather's death in 2012 and helped me claw my way up out of the depths of depression after that. I recall a show where you guys were talking about suicide and suicide prevention. That show helped me through rock bottom. I've suffered from depression, and you'll be happy to hear that I didn't get help after that show. You'll be happy to hear that I did get help after that show, and I'm in a much better place today. Well, thank you, Jay. I'm glad that you're still here, and I'm glad to hear that the words that two little boneheads in Minnesota said would help put you on a course of getting better. So thank you for sharing that. Dear Dave and Tim, I love your show, especially love Parashare. I've had many paranormal experiences throughout my life. I'm an emergency room nurse. I've worked as a pediatric hospital and general hospital. Both hospitals had paranormal activity that I experienced firsthand. I also heard many firsthand accounts from my colleagues, as well as stories. The hauntings at the pediatric hospital, the name that I wish to keep anonymous, were always sad and unnerving because they mostly involve child spirits. As you can imagine, many deaths that take place in the ER are sudden and always tragic, especially when it involves a child. I've been involved in cases that were terrible to downright miracles. Children are warriors and the most brave people I know. This hospital is always busy. There's never a second to spare. Breaks are few and far between. If we get a break, we take full advantage of them, usually to hit the bathroom, get a quick bite, and possibly take a short nap. There is a hospital room that is seldom used because it's a place that we provide for families to have privacy in their time of grief. It's also used from time to time to take a quick nap. This is an account of a paranormal experience that happened to me. I'd worked 5 night shifts in a row, and I was beyond tired. We actually had a rare full lull and were able to get some breaks. I took advantage of that. When it was my turn to take a break, I decided to take a quick 20-minute nap in the quiet room, as I was so tired that I lay down as is, stethoscope around my neck, metal scissors, clamps, and other paraphernalia in my pockets. As I was dozing off, I felt the room go cold. I could see my breath and goosebumps rose on my arms. I dismissed it until I felt as if someone was in the room and had taken a seat beside me on the bed. I saw an impression appear beside me, and it felt as if my arm were being touched. I sat up immediately and asked, "Who's here with me?" I saw what looked to be a white mist that passed by and then disappeared. I no longer felt a presence, and their room began to warm up. I was stunned. My nap was over. I reached into my pocket to make sure everything was still there and hadn't fallen out. All the metal objects in my pocket were ice cold. They shouldn't have been cold because they were against my leg. My stethoscope bell was also unusually cold. I just sat there as I was too stunned to react. I went back to the nursing station, and I must have looked pale because a nurse buddy of mine asked if I was okay. I told them of my experiences, expecting to be laughed at. It was just the opposite. Everyone started telling their experiences in that room and other places in the department and hospital. Now, you might be thinking, I was exhausted. I was asleep or falling asleep. My faculties were screwed. Fair points. This is where my being a mom and a nurse has its advantage in this situation. I'm able to be fully awake and highly functional within seconds. I can assure you I was very aware and know that I had a paranormal experience. It's something I'll never forget, and it also haunts me because any way you slice it, it's possible that it was a child spirit. That is something that will always leave me with a very heavy heart. Thank you for reading. Your faithful listener, Karen. Thank you, Karen. We like that. We've just got a couple more stories left, Tim.
Right.
Just a few more stories.
All right.
Dave, I've been a big fan of you and Tim for many years. See, only addressed to me, but you get mentioned right away, Tim.
Yeah.
I thought you'd like that little dramatic pause.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed the old shows and thoroughly enjoy the new one as well. I love the fact that you both share not only the great stories, but also personal sides that make the guests even more interesting. I was particularly touched by the period when your mom was ill and you lost her. My mom was an active 90-year-old who broke her hip on September 17th of last year. She succumbed to complications of the fall, and we lost her on December 14th of 2016. One of your shows was discussing haunted Nashville, and during the show you talked about how music has touched your life in very dramatic ways, and how you didn't think that the various songs and messages were coincidental, but the words were directed specifically at you and your needs. It reminds me of the day shortly after my mother passed. I was driving to her house, just a couple of miles from mine, on a Sunday morning to start clearing out her belongings. Her passing was still very fresh, and the fact that she was gone actually becoming a reality to me. I was angry and sad, depressed, all of those feelings that you just don't know how to deal with. When I started crying and talking to her, I said, "Mom, I need to know that you're okay. I need to know that you'll forgive me for not being there when you passed." She was ill, but we did not expect her to pass that quickly. So I did not spend the night with her the night she passed. We did our best for you for 30 years and especially tried to take care of you after you fell. You became so ill. I feel as if I deserted her when she truly needed me. I always tried to be there for her. It was 24/7 after she broke her hip, but my husband and I did all that we could for her. By this time, I was sobbing and trying to drive through the tears. When on the radio, there came a song that I had never heard before and had not heard played on the radio since. It was Jamie Johnson's Lead Me Home. I stopped crying and started listening to the words. I swear, Dave, it was as if she were answering my questions, and I know God was answering my prayers. If you get a chance, give it a listen. I've always been a Christian, believing in God and the afterlife, but like you, when I lost my mother, I had doubts. I just wanted to make sure that she's okay. I never had these doubts when my father passed many years ago, but for some reason I did have doubts after she passed. The words to that song say it all. I now know that she is okay, and that this is not just a coincidence. Thank you for your great show. You and Tim keep up the amazing work, and God bless you both. You have a lot of people who love you both and support the difference that you guys are making in this old world. Love you, and that comes from Lynn Scott in Winder, Georgia. Well, Lynn, let me tell you one thing from my perspective, and I could be wrong. Tim will tell you that happens quite often. I think your mom chose to go at that moment because you weren't there. And I really believe my mom was trying to go when I wasn't there. We had just planned. We said our goodbyes, not goodbye, but Mom, we're going to go get something to eat. We'll be back in a little bit. And we had been there nonstop for days. And all of us were going to go leave to go have dinner. All of us. And it was at that time that as we were leaving, and my dad just happened to go back in to say his goodbye one more time and just spend a few more seconds with her, that he realized she was collapsing and failing right then and there. And he brought us back into the room, and we were there for that moment. And as much as I love my mom, I know she knows how death would impact me. And I think she was waiting to go when I wouldn't be there so that I didn't have to go through that last few moments of watching her gasp and take her final breaths. So for all the people out there that feel guilty that you weren't there and that they passed in that brief moment you left the room, I think there's a reason for that. I believe there's a reason for that. And they're not alone. They weren't alone. They had loved ones there with them to help aid them over. But I still suffer a form of PTSD. There is nowhere near what people in the Army and military and police and fire deal with. But there are nights when I still see my mom gasping those last few breaths, and it's impossible to fall asleep. And I wish more than anything I could wipe that memory clear from my head. Because there's nothing more powerless than watching somebody you love die and knowing there's nothing you can do for it. And if I could trade that feeling in for letting it go and not being there, I would do that. Because I know that that's what my mom would want. She wouldn't have wanted me to see her go in those last few minutes. But I am comforted by the fact that she was surrounded with so much love and that we were all there holding her hands. So I do take that away from it, but I don't want you or anyone else that wasn't able to be there for that last moment to feel guilty. And I don't know what you think on that, Tim, but man, how many stories do we hear of sometimes the people rebound and they're doing great and they're fine and they're talking and they're chatting and you leave to go have dinner or you leave to go do something and in that minute is when they go. Yeah, I feel that's their choice to do that so that it's less for us, the survivors, to deal with.
Yeah, I believe they do pick their moments. They pick their moments based on what's easier for us, and not necessarily what's easiest for them. I think they really are considerate of what's going to be easier for the people around them, because it's a moment that I think is extremely personal for each one of us when we pass on. But not only that, but I think also it's a moment that I don't think until we get there, until we get to that moment, I think, we tend to be very self-focused in this life. We tend to be very self-insulated. And I think at that moment, when the veil is lifted, I think there becomes not only a self-awareness, but more of an awareness of everything around us that we've never had before. And I think in that moment, you also become more aware of the people around you and how you touch each and every person around you and how you affect those people around you. And I think in those days leading up to that, as that veil is lifted, I think you begin to realize what it is you need to do and how you're going to do it and when you need to do it, how you're going right to cross over. So like in the instance with your mom, I think you're absolutely right. I think she knew leading up to those days how she needed to depart and when she was going to depart. And I think each and every one of us subconsciously and consciously will know at that moment when we need to make that exit, you know.
And I think a lot of times we do try to do that. I do think these people choose those moments of solitude to take their time to take that final breath.
Yeah.
Because they don't want us to live through that and see that.
Right.
All right, our final email. Hi, Dave and Tim. I've been meaning to recount a story I was told about dowsing, but kept sidelining until it was mentioned again today. A couple of months ago, I had joined our local genealogy society branch with intent to volunteer and learn more about this area after living here for about 11 years. A new digitizing project was in the works, and I was to get started helping with the index, archiving, and cemetery document prep for scanning. While going through the computer in search of the right document, the librarian, I'll call her Marion, and I came across an archived email exchange. She must have assumed I was reading it over along with her because she turned and said it was a reference to an inquiry a number of years ago. I said, not knowing what else to add. She took off her glasses and asked me if I knew anyone that did dowsing. I said, well, my mother told me my grandfather used dowsing to find the best place to sink their well when preparing to build their house. But nope, not really anybody else. Marion proceeded to tell me about when the society was documenting old cemeteries. There were many that were overgrown with headstones broken, lost or buried, and graves hard to locate. Apparently, the email was about a gentleman inquiring whether the society would like to hire his services to use a machine to locate lost graves. I think the original cemetery documenting project has gone back to the 1980s. Marion said said that back in the day, Lillian and Millie used to went out with dowsing rods to locate the missing graves, and Millie was so adept they could even identify gender. She said, I don't know how they did it, but they did it. And the sites were all marked. At a later time, before the date of the email, there was another society member that had some kind of machine that did a survey, and his survey matched what Millie had done with the dowsing rods. The story was told to me in February. Today, we were getting started on the actual scanning, in which one of the first files was an old cemetery connected to the Institute for the Destitute. We'd come across an issue with the quality of the scan for the cemetery map. The numbers for the plots weren't coming out clearly. I'd asked if it was a file I'd picked out of the file drawers while Penny, the society president and scanner instructor, was out of the room. When she saw what our issue was, she said, oh, well, in that case, the map is of no use to us because it was a cemetery plan that was never actually used. Really? That's odd, another volunteer said. Penny recounted that about 5 years ago, the township was going to do some plowing. The Institute is in a rural area, and she was contacted by a local that knew the place very well. She, in turn, called the township to inform them there was a cemetery on the grounds. They were residents buried on the grounds, not in any kind of accordance to the map. The township office asked about surveying the grounds, and Penny informed him of the exorbitant cost of the ground-penetrating radar, and shortly thereafter, headed by Millie, they went out to the Institute with their dowsing rods. Penny said, I had no idea what they were going to do. Millie told me to hold my hand out like this, thumb to fingers in a circle, and stuck rods in each one and told me to move along. When I was walking and they suddenly started moving and crossed, I was scared and asked what it meant. Millie told me that there was a body there. Penny proceeded and sometime later came across another one. And while she waited for another member who was there documenting, the rod started to spin. What does that mean? Millie said, that one's a woman. There were quite a few other members out in the field with them, one being Ron, who was an engineer and very technically minded, and he could not figure out how to explain what was happening. And he had dowsing rods in his hand, and it was working for him too. He had no explanation. The township used their findings to fence off the boundary of the cemetery to protect it from further plowing. Penny mentioned another incident where she was helping a friend confirm locations at another cemetery, trying to determine where 3 individuals were buried. Walking back and forth with dowsing rods, they found where they believed them to be, and even had the spinning rod indicating which one was female. As sort of a follow-up, he asked her over to another section where there was a grave marker with 2 names on it. She passed back and forth over it and said, I'm sorry, I'm only picking up 1 burial here. He smiled and told her, that's okay. There actually is only 1 person buried in that plot, even though the stone says 2. Penny went on to repeat that she really didn't know how it works, but it does. And that the first time she did it, she was shit scared, Tim. Shit scared.
Shit scared, you say?
That's pretty scared. I'd just like to add that all of the volunteers and society members I've met to date range in age from the 60s to mid-80s. Millie and Lillian are in their mid-80s, and even just a few years ago were stomping around in the brush looking for burials with their dowsing rods. That story comes from Julianne. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you all for sharing your stories. We'll be back again tomorrow with the abduction of Angela Lejean, our guest, here on Beyond the Darkness.